Board of County Commission is going to reconvene for our public hearings. They're going to wait, though. We're going to finish item C18, which was in discussion before we left for break. After that, we'll do the resolutions, and then we'll get to the public hearing process. So, County Administrator?
So in discussions with Vertex, there is an indication that they are willing to wait 90 days. So prior to me having staff bring up anything, I would just like to give that out to the board for consideration. Sounds like they're willing to do some activities to talk and bring it back in 90 days, but that's what I've, information that I've been given by Vertex.
Commissioner, may I speak?
Commissioner Starkey.
So during lunch, I made quite a few phone calls. During my meeting with Vertex, before this meeting, I learned of the size of the footprint they needed for a cell tower. And when this controversy started, I had reached out to Keith Wiley, the head of our Parks and Environmental Lands, to see if there was room in the park for the tower to move it away from the school. And it was his impression that they needed 1 to 3, and there he is right there, I'm putting words in your mouth, 1 to 3 acres, and that there wasn't room. But at the size that the cell tower company mentioned to me this morning, he does feel that there's room to accommodate it in the park. That does bring up the challenge that the park is not part of the P4 agreement that we have with the school district, and they're very interested in the revenue that comes from the tower. So in talking with Mr. Goldstein, he said we could amend our P4 agreement and agree to share the revenue of the tower that would be located only on our property. And I called Mr. Gadd, and he said that was fine with the school district. And then talking to Mr. Steinsnyder and Mr. Carbala, the other caveat too is that because it is not on land that is part of the P4, it would have to be rebid. Now, Vertex was the only bidder on that tower on the school site. So I think I'll let the county attorney state the recommendations that they're giving to us on how to move forward. But that's going to be my motion, that we move forward with that one, and then we have this delay that we should also move forward with.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, based on what Commissioner Starkey has said, if you wish to entertain moving the tower away from the school on your property, on the park property, what I would recommend would be that go out for bid, that the current action, which is before you, would be continued for so many days so that you get through the procurement process on the other site before you reject. They don't need both leases, so if a lease comes out of the park site and that's the one the board wishes to go forward with in your proprietary capacity, then that would be the lease that would be offered to Vertex, assuming it meets all their criteria and they're willing to locate there. And then you would terminate the invitation for bid or invitation to negotiate for the shared use site. That would get the tower away from the school by so many feet. I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but that seems to be the compromise that was envisioned.
Mr. Chair, can I add one thing? I think we'd probably need about 120 days instead of 90 days to get through the procurement process. So if you're going to go with what Mr. Steinsnyder proposed, my recommendation would be that you continue this item 120 days.
Okay. So let me just ask a couple of questions. And I want to clarify something that I asked a question. I misunderstood the answer, or I didn't get enough information back from it. But when I read this company called It's Above Ground Level, and when I read this statement, and I'll read it again, although the Telecommunications Act of 1996 does not allow the government agencies to take account into the health effects of RF radio frequency emitted from cell towers and other radio transmitters when making decisions about site approval, landlords may consider health effects when deciding whether to lease. So for the board's clarity, because I thought I said this pretty clear, but, and I thought my answer back was different, but that statement rings true, okay?
Okay.
So having said that, we could just reject and be done. Now, I am delighted, Commissioner Starkey, that you dug in a little bit more and did a little more research to find out that we could move the site, and to go look at that is fine. But I will say that from everything I've seen, and I'm happy to work with Vertex, I'm glad they're willing to go work to change the site as well. Do we really need to even continue the item? Is there any benefit to Vertex or us where we can keep them in the game? Is that the objective? I'm not sure.
Mr. Chairman, as I said, I agree with the statement that when acting in your proprietary capacity, you don't have to lease your property. And you can reject leases for all sorts of reasons.
Right.
When acting in your regulatory capacity, what I was saying was, when acting in your since you both have a regulatory capacity and a proprietary capacity on this case, which was not the case in the article that you showed me. They were just the school board, so they didn't have any regulatory capacity over the tower. It confuses the issue for you as a governmental entity that has both a proprietary and a regulatory capacity. But your purchasing code allows you to reject bids when you deem it to be in your best interest. And the ITN that went out on this had that language in it. I just believe that based on where we are and based on the partnership with the school board, we need to have a solution before we reject this lease.
Okay, all right.
I'll second her motion.
Yep, I got the second as well. Okay, so for that reason, as much as I would like to be done with it as well, I'm happy we have an alternative. And Commissioner Starkey, thank you for, again, taking that step and working those last-minute negotiations. I tried to work it out yesterday as far as putting pressure on an alternative. I'm glad you came through with it. Fantastic. Any further discussion on the item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we're continuing the item for 120 days. We're going to look for an alternative source in the park so it doesn't go with the school. We don't want to,
Can't talk from there.
no, all right, so we I don't know, you want to address where? Because I don't know where, but
No, 'cause
I just know it's out of
it
the,
would be
I
in
just
the
know it's out of
very-
the school at this point.
As far away from everyone as we can.
Yeah, we'll work those details, and you'll be notified when we're going to have a hearing on that as well. All right? But thank you all very
There will
much.
be height discussions as well. But we have to move on with them.
Yeah, it's a 100-day continuance. We're looking for another site in the park, not the school. It won't be in the school. We're looking for an alternative. We're just protecting everything else to go. Please don't clap, but if you guys do want to go, we're going to carry on with the rest of our business. All right, thank you. Well, I know they want to go, so,
They're done.
all right.
I can stay here the rest of the day with us.
I didn't bring up this addenda. Should I just add that in now?
Let me.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, while the crowd is leaving, this morning when you approved the consent agenda, it has historically been my position, but the clerk asked me the question, so I'm asking you all. There was a consent addendum item that was on your addendum. I've traditionally taken the position that when you approve your consent agenda, you approve the addendum consent as well. Just want to make sure that the board
fine
knew
with
that
that.
there was an addendum and that was your desire.
Okay.
Okay.
Everyone good? Very good. All right, first resolution, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Is anyone here for Older Americans Month in Pasco County representing for this resolution? If so, please come to the podium. All right, so this is resolution number 23-119, a resolution by the Board of County Commissioners of Pasco County, Florida, declaring the month of May 2023 as Older Americans Month in Pasco County. Whereas there are more adults reaching retirement age, remaining strong and being active than ever before, and whereas older Americans are a vital part of Pasco County's demographic makeup, contributing their time, wisdom, and experience to the community. And whereas every citizen in Pasco County should strive to recognize, understand, and address the evolving needs of older adults. And whereas our society is dependent upon intergenerational cooperation and benefits from collective efforts to serve older adults and the people who love and care for them. And whereas Pasco County and the Area Agency on Aging of Pasco Pinellas recognize the need to create a community that offers services and supports older adults who may need to make choices about how they age and promotes flexible thinking about aging. And whereas the 2023 theme of Older Americans Month is Aging Unbound, which offers an opportunity to explore diverse aging experiences and discuss how communities can combat stereotypes. And whereas everyone can participate in Aging Unbound by finding new passions and pushing boundaries, by not letting age define our limits, growing our knowledge by taking classes and participating in creative activities, staying engaged in our community by volunteering, and forming relationships that can introduce us to new ideas and unique perspectives. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Pasco County, Florida, that said board hereby declares May as Older Americans Month, and on this 60th anniversary of Older Americans Month, urges every resident to honor their lifetimes of hard work, devotion to family, and commitment to community, which have been laid the foundation for the community we are today. Done and resolved in regular session with a quorum present in voting this 23rd day of May 2023.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Well, Commissioner Oakley, I'm glad you made the motion first, because you are the elder American here in this board.
Yeah, I'm here for this.
But Commissioner Bradford, it was his resolution, but we all fully support it. Why don't we all go down, we'll take a picture, and would you like to comment? Because we do greatly appreciate your service.
Brian knows all about it.
Absolutely. Hello, members of the board. Brian Hoban, Director of Community Services. I want to first start by thanking the board for their support for Pasco County Senior Services and the seniors of Pasco County. Also want to thank our partner agency, Area Agency on Aging. They're here today represented by Christine Didion, who would like to come up and just say a few words, as well as Mela Gresh. They're phenomenal partners, and we couldn't serve the citizens of Pasco and the seniors of Pasco without them. And also want to just say thank you to the Pasco County Senior Services team. They do a phenomenal job serving our citizens day in and day out and striving to be premier. So I'm going to...
Well, and I'd like to say, the great work you're doing, I think, is going to lead a lot of great services coming up in the near future for us as well. So
Absolutely.
we greatly appreciate you being able to step in and making sure we're taking care of our seniors. So thank you.
That's our goal.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian. Like Brian said, my name is Christine Didion. I'm with the Area Agency on Aging of Pasco and Pinellas, and I have here with me Mela Gress, our Older Americans Act Federal Funding Program Manager. That's quite a mouthful. We might have to change that. As we celebrate Older Americans Month, we also must celebrate programs that provide supportive services that seek to maintain older adults' independence and dignity in their own home environment. Thanks to the long-standing partnership with Pasco County, we're able to work towards these goals together by Pasco County providing an array of services that range from transportation, home-delivered meals, hosting congregate meal sites, nutrition counseling, and nutrition educational services. In 2022, Pasco County provided over 169,000 meals and 9,014 trips to over 1,000 clients over the age of 60, funded by the Older Americans Act. And I echo Brian's sentiment that there's a special appreciation to the staff that serve clients under the Older Americans Act programs. Without the direct service workers, volunteers, program coordinators, and managers, this program would not have the opportunity to promote independence and dignity for older adults in our communities. And the Area Agency on Aging of Pasco Pinellas looks forward to many more successful years partnering with Pasco County to continue to meet those needs of older adults. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go down and take a picture.
Yes, sir.
Talk to me, sir.
I know that.
The other?
Okay. Mr. Bros, would you like to approach the podium? Okay, this is Resolution 23-120, a resolution by the Board of County Commissioners of Pasco County, Florida, expressing appreciation to Patrick Bros, data analyst for the Information Technology Department for his 12 years of exceptional service to Pasco County. Whereas Patrick Bros was hired December 6, 2010, as a senior programmer analyst for the Pasco County Information Technology Department, previously serving 22 years with Pinellas County. And whereas during his career with Pasco County, Patrick Bros served as a senior programmer analyst, a business systems analyst, a technical support manager, and a data analyst. And whereas in 2016, Patrick was instrumental in the implementation and data conversions from the mainframe to the new criminal and juvenile justice information systems. And in his business systems analyst role, Patrick led projects for Pasco County, including the implementation of the agenda automation system and a work order and asset management system. And whereas Patrick was significant in multiple Pasco County website upgrades that provided citizens with a tool to find local information and county workers with resources they utilized on a day-to-day basis. And whereas Patrick's promotion to a technical support manager in April of 2019 allowed him to gain knowledge on organizing and prioritizing software development-related projects, including assistance to the public infrastructure branch. His efforts and assistance to the IT business unit support group within led to the upgrade of the utility billing software. And whereas Patrick was key to the implementation of the payment processing program for solid waste and assisted the 6 judicial circuit judges with the creation of the judges bench scheduling application. And whereas Patrick's last role as a data analyst included working with Pasco County leaders on the creation of dashboards for valuable strategic and operational KPI metrics. And whereas on March 3rd, 2023, Patrick retired from the Board of County Commissioners, the Information Technology Department and the Board of County Commissioners recognized Patrick's outstanding work ethic, dedication, and dependability in his many job duties, which made him a valuable team member to the citizens of Pasco County. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners, Pasco County, Florida, in session duly assembled, that said board hereby expresses its deepest appreciation to Patrick Bros for his more than 12 years of service to the citizens of Pasco County. Done and resolved in regular session with a quorum present and voting this 23rd day of May, 2023.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Patrick, you've put many years in government. I'm glad you get your training down in Pinellas and come up here and we get to reap the rewards that you've gotten. The list of items that are here, I'm sure there's more to it as well, is tremendous. So for you to put your time in with us and help us so greatly in so many important ways, as an IT person, they're very hard to come by and very well treasured for all you in the department as well. We're delighted that you're here and that you're with us, and congratulations on your retirement. I'd like to say a few words.
Yes, it's been a joy to be, I mean, I love creating things, implementing new processes and everything like that, making life a lot easier, especially like not the agenda automation system you have today, but the one prior to it. I was very instrumental in that, and that took a lot of work and a lot of coordination with the clerk's office and the agenda people. So it's been a real joy to work at the county and create things that make life a lot easier, so.
No, we appreciate you. Congratulations.
Must have been an interesting morning for you.
Mike Carbella?
Yeah, I just want to add something. When I first met Patrick, I thought he had the coolest last name of anyone that I'd ever met. But you did a lot of great stuff during our time in public infrastructure, and I just want to thank you for that publicly. Well done, and congrats on retirement. Thank you.
All right. Now, do you have family here?
Yes, my wife's here.
Ale?
Come up.
Excellent. Well, why don't we come all up front with take a picture? Mike, anyone from the department here too?
No, I actually didn't retire from Pinellas. That was a layoff from Pinellas. When all the, when they were getting rid of everybody who was down in Pinellas.
Sir, in the back, could you just come forward, please? Try to get everybody.
You were standing in the right place.
Unless you want to hide.
Definitely his that.
Okay, folks, right here first, please.
One more. Thank you.
Sorry for the delay, but a couple of items came up.
Hey, those poor folks sat through all morning. Sat through the whole morning. Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting, could I present something to you?
No. No, I'm just kidding.
It's not the right thing.
Go ahead, Commissioner Oakley, sorry.
But actually, I've got something I need I would like to have the board approve a letter of support for Pasco County to apply for the community case care of the elderly grant. This is the grant that CARES has backed out of. The deadline for this grant for the team is June 23rd, and would be great to have a letter from the board supporting this effort and us trying to gain this grant for the elderly folks here in Pasco County. And I believe Paula can help us draft that letter for your signature.
Okay.
So that's my motion to
Second.
have that letter. And there's a second.
And a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And thank you, Commissioner Oakley. I know you're serving very hard to help the seniors, and greatly appreciate that. Okay, so we got item P54. Continuance. Can we approve?
Sorry. All right, yes. P54 was advertised in Tampa Bay Times, April 5th, 2023, and by affidavit of certified mailings and site postings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Victoria Pitos, Planning and Development. Item P54 is an ordinance amending the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan, providing for small-scale comprehensive plan amendments to future land use map 2-15 and sheet 12 from Res 3, residential 3 dwelling units per gross acre, to IL, industrial light, on approximately 11.52 acres of real property located on the north side of State Road 52, approximately 0.15 miles east of Giddens Road, and a map amendment to the future land use map 2-9, amending subarea map 2952, Paul Materials. The comprehensive plan text amendment to subarea policy flu 7.1.52, Paul Materials, providing for additional text amendments as necessary for internal consistency, providing for repealer servability and effective date. And this item is being continued to was requested to be continued to the June 20, 2023 BCC meeting here in Port Richey at 1:30.
All right, so move to continue time certain. Someone make a motion?
So move.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. P55?
Yes, advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on January 4th, 2023.
Item P55 is providing for a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment to the future land use map, map 2-15 and sheet 22 from Res 9 residential 9 dwelling units per gross acre and ROR retail office residential to PD plan development on approximately 81.47 acres of real property located at the southwest corner of the intersection at State Road 54 and Gun Highway, and a text amendment creating sub-area policy FLU 7.168 Odessa Town Center PD, and a map amendment to the future land use map 2-9, adding sub-area map 2-968 Odessa Town Center PD, and providing for additional text amendments as necessary for internal consistency. This is a request for a continuance to a date uncertain, mainly to align with with an MPUD that's currently making its way through the public hearing process.
Oh.
It just needed to be re-advertised anyway, so they'll
Excellent.
come
Okay,
together.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, no, it's not indefinite.
We're all good, okay.
Yeah.
Move to continue?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And P56?
I apologize, Chairman. There was somebody signed up for P55. Did we need to take public comment on that? No?
It was advertised as a continuance.
Okay, all right. Then we will go on. So P56 was advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on May 3rd, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item P56 is an ordinance amending the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan, providing for a comprehensive plan amendment, amending future land use map, map 2-15 and sheet 5, from Res 3 residential 3 dwelling units per gross acre and EC Employment Center to IL Industrial Light on approximately 299.75 acres of real property located west of the Suncoast Parkway along Softwind Lane, approximately 1.5 miles north of State Road 52, and providing for additional text amendments as necessary for internal consistency, providing for repealer, severability, and effective date, and I have staff with me to provide the presentation.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Brian Younger with Planning Long Range Department. Project is PDD 0203, Comprehensive Plan Amendment, CPAC PA 2210, Greenfield Place West Industrial. Site location, the property is located on the South Market area on the urban service area. The project overview. The proposal, the applicant is proposing a comprehensive plan amendment from Res 3 and EC to IL on approximately 299.75 acres to allow for light industrial uses. Location is north of Shady Hills Road, north of the Suncoast Parkway along Sunwith Lane, approximately 1.5 mile north of State Road 52. Resolution is to amend the FLU map 2-15 and sheet 5 from Res 3 and EC to IL. Rezoning, there is a companion rezoning petition 7696 Greenfield Place to follow. Here is the site location aerial map. The proposed site is located within the area of interest as per the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Commission study. Here is a slide of the wetlands. There's no category wetlands on the proposed site. 16 future land use of the site. We got the proposed future land use, IL. We got a map of the Vision Road. There's roadway Z that is gonna bisect to the middle side. We got the Suncoast Parkway along the east side, and then you also have Suncoast Trail that is to the west side of Suncoast Parkway and to the east of the proposed site. Here is just a map to show the surrounding MPUD that surround the proposed site. And here is the current zoning. The proposed amendment is consistent with the following comprehensive plan policies. Recommendation: recommend the Board of County Commissioners find the proposed amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan and adopt by roll call vote.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
Well, I just want to say one thing, and based on the gentleman that spoke this morning, I don't know if he's still here in public comment, but this borders the Suncoast, and I was part of what's an acronym called a CAG, Corridor Advocacy Group, that worked to designate the Suncoast Highway as a scenic corridor. And so there are landscaping buffer requirements along the edge. And, you know, we have a very nice trail along the edge. So we're supposed to keep a vegetated buffer between the property line and whatever development comes in. So I would want to make sure that those rules and regulations are being followed. When D.R. Horton came in with the preserve, they did put some extra trees in front of their fence that they put up along there, and it's just important that that's a beautiful road, and does our county well to have that road coming through it and that trail, and I just don't want to degrade it, so that's all. But I am in favor of this.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. And the applicant?
Thank you.
Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey, for the applicant. Yes, Commissioner Starkey, I acknowledge on the record what you're saying regarding the buffering requirements. We are familiar with those, and we'll make sure that is carried through.
It needs to be opaque.
Understood.
Yeah.
Your staff report was very well done. This is a target area. Your report that was done by TVRPC last year said, look at this area. This part of this property is already part of the Penny for Pasco, a Ready Sites program being marketed for Ready Sites. So you're spending your Penny for Pasco money here. It's in an area where there's other industrial where you would naturally locate such a use. One thing, you know, I've heard the residents comment regarding development in this area. And one thing I reflect on is I'm not sure they understand the development potential for this property. On the land use, 1,541 dwelling units are allowed, 1,541 dwelling units, with all of the student generation that would include. So I think if you put that in perspective, the fact that you had a study done, it said this is an area where the county should have light industrial, along with recognizing the development potential for that property for that number of homes, apartments, at 1,541 units. I think this advanced all your goals. As your staff report went through, it's absolutely consistent with your comprehensive plan. It's what your comprehensive plan directs. And we're happy to bring this property forward to advance your comprehensive plan, your study, and bring jobs to the county. Thank you.
Barbara, do we have an estimate how many jobs it's going to create?
We do not have any users.
Okay.
We are bringing this forward as a property owner to set it up for the future. But no, I don't have any estimate.
Okay.
Dave Engel may have an idea from your Economic Growth Department.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chair.
Commissioner Waitman?
Thank you. Just in an abundance of caution, I know there's a note sent to Mr. Goldstein about the potential, just based on the Live Local Act and this zoning. I just like to go on record that there's no intention to have residential multifamily on this site.
Commissioner, thank you for bringing that up. Staff had kind of beat you to that and beat us up already now. We're absolutely happy to do the deed restriction. Mr. Goldstein's provided the language that we worked on together. Clark and David and myself all worked on language to address that. We have the deed restriction ready, and as the rezoning comes forward, you'll see that.
Thank you. You
Thank you.
must have been confident. There's no running shoes on, I noticed.
I just couldn't do it. I'm such a heels girl.
Commissioner Starkey, did you have something?
Just one thing.
Barbara?
When you know, we've been getting a lot of emails about traffic, and I can't recall if this conversation was in the MPO meeting or just one that I had with traffic people as we were working on the 54 and Rangeland Tower intersection. But they told me there's going to be another connection point at Shady Hills to the Suncoast. So that will help the traffic very much. I'm pretty sure that's where they said it was going to be. Is anyone here from MPO? Has anyone else heard that beside me? Yeah, so they said they thought there would be two, the tower and the, and when is it Shady Hills that?
Shady Hills goes underneath.
Yeah.
It goes underneath. North of this property, Shady Hills goes underneath.
So that could
the
help
Suncoast.
very much.
Good.
We do have Steve Henry here to talk transportation, but I know you probably have some citizens that want to speak first, so
Yeah, okay.
we'll listen and be
All
ready
right,
to.
any other questions for Barbara? Okay. All right, this is time for public comment. Anyone here signed up for the item?
Yes, sir. We have 7. So I'll start with the first 3. When I call your name, if you'll line up behind Miss Julia Bartonek, she will be the first speaker. Then Dixie Sparks and Linda, I apologize, I'm having a hard time reading this, Flaverno, maybe? Farmer. Okay, thank you. Miss Bartonek. Please give your name and address for the record.
Julia Bartunik, 2645 Meadowood Drive, Newport Richey, Florida, 34655.
Thank you.
And the Sierra Club Pasco Conservation Committee stands with this community here today against the rezoning of this area to light industrial. First, this area is vital to the health of many Pasco County residents because of proximity to Cruise Lake Park being part of the headwaters of the Pythla-Chescody River. Secondly, this area is important as a carbon sink, and preserving 30% of green spaces by 2030 is critical to sustainability and environmental resiliency. Thirdly, this area has wildlife and a balanced ecosystem that are threatened and endangered, such as gopher tortoises that support 360 other species in each borough and sandhill cranes. Shady Hills residents have suffered enough over the past decades, with the incinerator being placed there, recently approving a toxic plastics factory, and now this on the agenda. This is unjust, unfair, and unacceptable. Pause for 10 seconds, please. Sorry, I get nervous here. One moment. Okay. Isaiah 2:4, 4-6. The earth mourns and withers, the world languishes and withers, the highest people of the earth languish. The earth lies defiled under its inhabitants, for they have transgressed. It's okay. I was born nervous. It's okay. The earth lies, that made me more nervous. The earth lies defiled under its inhabitants. That made me more nervous. You go. I'm going to have to go back.
If you want to come back up later, you can.
Yeah, I'll come back.
Okay,
You were
if you
doing
can come back
great.
later, don't worry. No, just when you're ready to come back up, just let us know. No problem.
I'm Dixie Sparks. My address is 8612 Aberdeen Court, Trinity, Florida. I'm here on behalf of the Sandhill Cranes Trinity Watch Group. This area has sandhill cranes. They are protected by the Migratory Bird Act, and they are an endangered species. They're endangered because of habitat loss. As I'm sure everyone here is aware of, Trinity all the wetlands have been destroyed, and they're out on the highways foraging in the streets. And most of them have been run over by cars. We have very few left at this point in time. I don't quite understand why we are not concerned about our environmental issues here in Pasco County. The wetlands not only provide habitat for the sandhill cranes and all wildlife, but they filter our water. Seven Springs filtered the water for Pasco and Pinellas County, is what I've been told. They protect us from storms, flooding, hurricanes. They are essential to the ecological system, our environment, to our health. When trees go, water goes, and we have nothing but pavement and highway, our health declines. Trees are oxygen and they provide for your very well-being, your health. When this is destroyed, illness will take over. I really wish everyone could put themselves, go out and watch the sandhill cranes sometime, see how they interact with their colts. They're the most amazing parents you'll ever see. And educate your children and protect our environment for future generations, please.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Linda Farmer. I live at 18751 Coate Street. I'm a member of the Shady Hills Civic Association, and out of respect for your time, we did not bring 458 people here with us today. We brought only a few. I have only a few things to speak of today, one of them being this particular 300 acres, which on itself would probably be okay, but then you have the plastic plant in front of it and the beautiful Del Webb community that you're going to be building on the opposite side of the street in front of our only park with a lake and a river that runs into the Starkey Reserve and out to the reservoir. You're going to hear a lot about soft wind. You're going to hear soft wind, soft wind, soft wind. Soft wind is a very small street, and the only way you can get to soft wind is from Hayes or Shady Hills Road. Everybody remember how many accidents were on Shady Hills Road last week? Almost as many members as I've gotten into the Shady Hills Civic Association, which is 467. We had a meeting before. We continued the meeting. What changed from the last meeting until this meeting? What new evidence has come up? Why did we continue the meeting? We asked for a road survey. Everybody, road survey. Why do we need a road survey? I'm going to show you. This is a semi-tractor trailer coming from Highway 54 onto Shady Hills Road. Flip them. Go to the next screen, please. These are two semi-tractor trailers, one of them being a dump truck. Go to the next one. This is Shady Hills Road to County Line Road. This is Shady Hills Road going on to County Line Road. Go to the next screen. This is our school. We have a 3-lane road now on Shady Hills Road. We have a southbound lane. We have the big truck going northbound, and now you will see in the next few pictures, all of the teachers, all the parents that have to line up on the side of this road that creates a hazard. Go to your next screen, please. These are the parents that have to line up on the side of Shady Hills Road every single day with this amount of traffic, cross-flow traffic, that shouldn't be coming down Shady Hills Road from Softwind because they don't use Hayes Road. It's not a trucking lane. Next screen, I'm going to run out of time. These are our school buses. Do you see all the traffic that, look at the amount of traffic that's going down our road during school being let out. Go ahead, keep going. Keep going. This is one of your Earthlink dump trucks that do not use Shady Hills Road that goes down Hayes. Keep going. These are just like all types of vehicles, right? And there's a third lane behind that with people sitting on the side of the road. If any emergency vehicle had to come down that road right now, what would happen? If somebody had an accident or blew a tire, what would happen? Go to your next screen. Another one of your trucks. Go. Another truck. Go. This is just a huge truck, Shady Hills Road. Look where it's at. The only sidewalk that we have in front of the school. That's where it stops. There was some more pictures I had. This is the water meter at the beginning, the top of what flows through your preserve, ma'am. Keep going. The puddles in the water. Keep going. One more picture. That's your riverbed that runs into Cruise Lake Park that has absolutely no water in it. Can I get one more picture, please? That's a $600,000 observation tower that you guys just spent for their penny for Pasco to look at. Next picture, please. That water right there in Cruise Lake. This entire area that you've picked out to place all your little things that you're going to tie into a big bow and make this big giant community, there's wetlands in that area. I don't care what they say. You need a survey. Somebody needs to get out there. There's wetlands on that 300 acres. There is wetlands on that 300 acres, and it needs to be looked at. There's a statue. If I move a gopher turtle, which I have 13 on my 3 acres of property, I'm fined for. I have photos of them scooping up everything on that land when they built that plastic plant and burning the turtles down. We have coyotes. We have all kinds of animals coming through our community, killing our animals that we raise to have chickens for our eggs, our goats. So we don't have to go to the store and buy an $8 carton of eggs. I am begging you guys. I am laying my life down here as a fourth-generation Floridian, and I'm begging you. We need a road survey, and we need a land survey on this property. It's going to be irresponsible for you to go any forward without it. I just want you to know Shady Hills is here, and we are going to be at every single planning. They told us at the planning meeting to show up. I said, I'm not going to do that because 458 people coming in here taking up 3 minutes of your time is irresponsible on our behalf. You don't need to hear the same thing over and over and over again, but you do need to hear us. I'm asking for you to hear us. We're already in a drought situation. Where's the water coming from for all this? It's not just this 300 acres, the plant, the Del Webb. It's all wrapped into one big thing. You're going to ruin our only park that we have. I'm just begging you guys, please we need to take another look at this before you just pass it through. We don't want any more accidents or deaths happening on Shady Hills Road. I appreciate the extra time.
Okay, I'm going to take the next 4 who are signed up.
Please don't applaud.
I'm going to take the next 4 who are signed up for public comment. Matthew Cornelison, followed by Dennis Kegel, followed by Jen Kurok, and lastly, Mary Crandis.
Matthew Cornelison, 17662 Oxenham, Shady Hills, Florida. I had the opportunity to speak at the Planning Commission meeting last Thursday about the adjacent project to this one, the 900 acres with the additional 300 acres of light industrial. And one of the things that was mentioned there was they said that we needed to come to the board and talk to the board about road priorities. They took the time during the meeting to question what is happening with the Shady Hills Road corridor. The Shady Hills Road corridor is the principal north-south corridor coming from Spring Hill going down to 52 and includes the cut-through on Softwind and Hayes Road. And what was disclosed at the Planning Commission meeting is that there are no plans to do anything with this corridor for the next 10 years. And that quite simply is unacceptable. I found the earliest mention of this area being developed in the news media was back in 2006. So that's 17 years, and now we've got another 10 years on top of that with no plans to do anything for this road. When we're looking at 300 acres of light industrial with this project, 300 acres of light industrial with the adjoining project, 1,500 plus new homes, apartment units in this general area, all in a triangle formed by 4 schools. And yet we still have a road that is an embarrassment to Pasco County. It has 2 lanes, whether you're in the northern parts of Shady Hills, whether you're southern parts, whether you're over in Softwind, there are 2 lanes. But there are 2 other lanes, and Linda talked about how there's 3. There's actually 4, because depending on the time of day, cars have to use the dirt road or the dirt path on the other side. When I came to the Planning Commission meeting, I thanked them for increasing the width of their proposed trail from 5 foot to 8 foot, because that's simply going to allow the cars an additional 3 foot to drive down when we can't get an additional road built here. There are too many things going into this area and not enough road capacity to allow for children to safely attend these 4 schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Dennis Kegel, 18205 Bosley Drive. Thank you for letting me speak today. And I'm here in concerns about the light industrial. A couple of things is we don't know what it's going to be. You know, it could be anything. We already have a plastics plant, and if you see it all the time, things go wrong sometimes. And if something goes wrong, it's not only going to be a disaster for our community, but with Cruz Lake being the head of the main river that flows all the way through New Port Richey, it's going to affect that community as well if it gets into the water. And then we don't know what kind of trucking they're going to be having. And with the theory that they use Hayes Road being totally false by the pictures and by what we've seen, Shady Hills Road it wasn't built for them heavy trucks. And without knowing what's going there, we don't know what kind of vehicles that they're going to be using. So I strongly oppose it being light industrial for now until we find out more of what's going to go on or if we can get the roads fixed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen Kerouac, 15925 Green Glen Lane. Good afternoon. I have been before y'all before. I've invited folks to our Shady Hills meetings. We've spoke with Commissioner Waitman, Commissioner Mariano. Chairman Mariano has come to a couple of our meetings. We've invited all the commissioners to the meetings. That's because our community has been left out. We haven't had a voice, and this continues generationally. At the Planning Commission meeting the other day, Mr. Moody said that this has been an issue for decades. For decades, Shady Hills has been kind of set aside. And I would like to also commend the county for their work in the Lakuchi area. Okay, it's my understanding 150,000 HR dollars were spent to meet with that community to pull together a plan of the improvements in that community. And that's exactly what we've been asking for. So when I asked the person who shared this with me, how do we do that? They simply said the county commissioners are the ones that make the decisions. They're the ones that okay the money. They're the ones that make the plans. They're the ones that we follow. So we have 3 minutes per meeting, so 6 minutes each per month that we can come before you. They had 150,000 HR dollars. The community there, I looked it up, 1,562 folks with a decrease of 8% is their population. Shady Hills population was just a little over 12,359 folks, something like that, with an increase of 8% in population. And yet we continue to be just overlooked. We were told the other day we don't show up, but clearly we're here showing up. We are saying the same things over and over again. We are seeing that there is a lack of consideration. The planning does not align, with what is happening in other areas. I mean, 150,000 HR dollars, and we can't get someone to come for, a few minutes to talk to us and get ideas from the community. I know you did that in Lakuchi. There's nearly $50 million to improve 2.5 miles of road near that area. And I commend you for the work to try and improve that area. But why is there a lack of focus on this area? Because we see that Chairman Mariano is supporting other areas, and we've had conversations, Commissioner Mariano, with regards to our need to gather the other commissioners together to try and improve that. I know you only have this time, and it's the Sunshine Law and so on.
Wrap it up, please.
I'm sorry?
Got to wrap it up, please.
Yes. I have a video as well of...
Your time's up.
Okay. Well, we're going to continue to show up. We'll continue to email, and I pray that y'all make decisions that will positively impact our area.
Ms. Mary Kranides? All right, name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Mary Kranides. I live at 15515 Waxweed Avenue. Waxweed is a flower. I'd like to use some of my time for Miss Jennifer to finish, Pastor Jennifer to finish her thing. Can she do
You
that?
can use your time to show the video if you want.
Yeah, can we do that? And, okay, I just want to, these people that are against our environment, I'm for the, yes, ma'am.
How long is the video?
Okay, go ahead, hurry.
Yeah, you might want to do the video. Here it goes. Here it
Jen,
goes.
can you do it?
It's up.
Here we go. Okay.
Okay, this is a dirt road where parents park, and then regular traffic goes down that road. All those people on the side of the road are parents waiting for their kids. Okay, there's no safe place for even kids to walk home, right, guys? Am I saying this right? That's how crazy it is. Look at that now. That's the turn into the school. That's what, Shady Hills Elementary, right? Yeah, okay, so this is just one of the many schools that are down there. Okay, so we got Cruz Lake Middle School, which is a brand new school. We got Shady Hills Elementary, and what am I missing, Jen? Mary Giella, which those little kids are going to look out the window. Imagine looking out the window, and I'm speaking to the camera because I hope you're all paying attention out there. Imagine being the school child, looking out of your window and seeing a nasty, dirty, gross plastics plant, and then trying to decide what you want to do for your future. They're building, okay, there are areas that are non-flood areas. Okay, I'm getting tired of being with the Red Cross and disasters that I go on with FEMA and seeing destroyed places. I'm worried about the future of the water. I'm getting tired of registering people because they lost everything. We don't want this to be the next place where people lost everything. Okay, let's just save the trees and the birds and the job that the birds do. The lady down there mentioned about how they help with the storms and everything, okay? And, you know, the legends of Chief Arapica and all that about living over here because there's less hurricanes. We just want to keep this place good. Let's live by the trees. Let's keep Shady Hills shady with trees. Let's not be greedy about industrialization and all that, okay? Because this is sand. We got water below us. Mr. Mariano, you do remember tasting the well water out of that bottle. Tastes just like Zephyr Hills. You can't compare the difference. I should have brought some for you all. Come over my house, 15515 Waxweed, knock on the door and have some of my well water, because I hope for your children and grandchildren that'll be the water that they'll be able to savor and enjoy, because that's what we're here for. We're here for the animal. We're here for the voiceless, the animals, the trees. Guys, just hang out in my yard under all those oak trees, okay? Let's just, 300 acres is a lot to build up to garbage and junk and smell, okay? Who wants that? You know you don't want that. You know in your heart you don't want that, right, you guys? You beeping at me, but you know I'm right, America, on the camera out there, okay? You know in your heart that we're right.
Time's up. Come on up, ma'am.
I'm Julia Bartunik, 2645 Meadowood Drive, Newport Richey, Florida, 34655. And I'd like to say after the rainy season, it would be great if another environmental impact statement was done after the rainy season. Isaiah 2:4-6. The earth mourns, and this is for myself included. The earth mourns and withers, the world languishes and withers. The highest people of the earth languish. The earth lies defiled under its inhabitants, for they have transgressed the laws, violated the statutes, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore, a curse devours the earth, and its inhabitants suffer for their guilt. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are scorched, and a few men are left. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here for public comment on P56? Anyone online?
There is not.
Okay. I will close public comment. Would the applicant like to come back up?
Well, I wanted to ask.
Yes, there's no one on WebEx.
Is it okay if I ask some questions first? Or do we do it during Barbara's rebuttal?
You can do it either way.
Okay, so,
Speak now, too, whichever way.
well, is Gary Plastics here yet?
No.
Okay, David, when I look online at their building, it's a nice building. So can you tell me what the community can expect with Gary Plastics? That's okay, sorry, 1 second, Barbara.
David Engel, Economic Growth Director. Gary Plastics is occupying 266,000 square feet of a 400,000 square foot building. The company is a plastics recycling company. It is a light industry. There are no emissions coming out of the building besides thermal out of the roof, out of vents. And it's a closed system, and they pre-treat the waste, and any waste goes into our sanitary system. So it's not an environmental issue, and it's consistent with light industrial, not heavy industrial.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. People may have had the wrong impression of what was coming.
I responded to a series of letters from an individual in the Shady Hills area explaining what the use was, and we vetted the use before we entertained working with them, and they came up clean.
Okay.
And how many jobs are going to create?
What, in this project, Greenfield West?
No, this Gary's Plastics.
500 jobs, sir.
Okay,
That's great.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Barbara Wilhite, 6327 for the applicant. You heard a lot about the environment. I must say, the county has done quite a bit of planning for the environment. Over on the east side of Shady Hills Road, east of the Suncoast Parkway, you have your Starkey to Crossbar Ecological Corridor, which you've done quite a bit of work through your Penny for Pasco funds in both, one, outright purchasing that corridor for preservation as part of your Cruise Lake Park system, as well as getting property owners to donate conservation easements to the county. So there has been quite a bit of focus on the environment in this area and planning for preservation. This project has to go through the environmental studies, listed species survey, wetland delineation. When Brian was speaking, he was wanting to say to you there's no Category 1 wetlands. I think he said no wetlands, but his map shows there are some Category 2 and 3 wetlands, but none of your Category 1 wetlands are mapped on this particular property.
And Barbara, aren't we the only county that actually does 2 and 3?
Pardon me?
Aren't we the only county that actually looks at 2 and 3 category wetlands?
You're the only county that categorizes wetlands in addition to what SwiftMud does. You have your own categorizations, 1, 2, and 3s. SwiftMud scores wetlands. They don't have a categorization, so you have additional regulations on wetlands here in Pasco that other jurisdictions do not have.
Although other communities have different classifications for wetlands as well. The Class 1, Class 2, Class 3 is unique to us, but my former jurisdiction had herbaceous and forested that they looked at as a separate level. Each local government kind of does it differently.
I think the rest of it's all a traffic discussion. I think you've heard from Mr. Engel about the job potential for the property to the north of us where the plastic plant will be. Light industrial, by definition, cannot have any objectionable aesthetic impact, can't have any adverse noise, smoke, dust, vibration, or glare. And you have performance standards in your comp plan as well as your land development code to make sure that's the case. If it had any of those objectionable aesthetics, impact, adverse noise, smoke, dust, or vibration, or glare, you'd have to be a heavy industrial, and there's no heavy industrial. We're proposing light industrial. Steve Henry has looked at the traffic in this area, what's going on currently with the growth, what's projected to look like for Shady Hills Road and the other roads in 2035, as well as what the traffic distribution is for this property. So I'll have him come and speak to you about what he has reviewed regarding traffic. I would say that the video of Shady Hills Elementary, as you know, is well north of this site, not to diminish their concerns about Shady Hills Elementary and the traffic in that location, but it is quite a bit north. And again, the property is currently land use for 1,500 homes. So we're taking the ability to remove those homes from this property, have job-producing property, and to deed restrict the ability to have affordable housing on the project.
Steve Henry, Links and Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. We, although not required, we did do a bunch of counts at the intersections, Soft Winds, Shady Hills, and 52, Hudson and Hayes, to look at what the existing capacity of the roadways are. And then we also looked at in the future, and we just used a growth rate at this point, but looking at a 2% per year growth rate, which is actually much higher than what we looked at historically, what is out in that area. And based on that, all the roadways, Shady Hills, Soft Winds, Hudson, Hayes, all operate at either level of service C, but all of them are C today, and then D, only all of them are C except for one, D in the future. Now, one of the things that you looked at with Shady Hills is not a capacity. There's a difference between capacity issue and an operational issue. So with Shady Hills Elementary and some of the elementary schools, you do have some operational issues because they don't have the queuing on site that they need. That's not necessarily a capacity issue of the roadway. It is an operational issue that certainly needs to be looked at as far as that school, whether there's some different staggering of hours, whether there's some different queuing that can be done on site. But that's really an operational issue. That's not necessarily something you go 4-lane a road because a school has an operational issue. But from our standpoint, we've looked at it, and the reality is that this project, this particular piece of property, is at Hudson and Soft Winds. So the majority of the traffic is really going to be looking more at going down Hudson, down Hayes, than necessarily going north up to Soft Winds and Shady Hills, and then going back south again to 52. The reality, the short distance is to 52 is Hayes Road. It's actually got better geometry at 52 than Soft Winds or than Shady Hills does. That, unless you've got any questions.
Just one question.
Sure.
On the video we just saw, there was a yellow pipe standing up in the ground. Is that like a gas line or, right?
Typically.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
I guess I have a
Mr. Stark.
question. Are there any of those roads, what's the word, where it's no through trucks, and should there be? Maybe at certain times of the day, I don't know. I don't know that area as
Are you
well.
referring to Shady Hills Road?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's pretty much a major north-south thoroughfare. Widening, you discussed capacity issues and operational issues. I mean, as far as operational issues with the school board, we try to work with the school board when there are operational issues as far as stacking of traffic on their site, provided that there's room. I mean, there's always opportunities to go speak with the school board about those matters. With regards to Shady Hills widening and from a capacity perspective, that's in the 2045 LRTP. That is in the 2036 to 2045 timeframe as to when we think that capacity will actually be needed. But operationally, we can always consider operational improvements. Branford, I think there's also some pedestrian and sidewalk improvements that are planned.
Yes.
Yeah, where's their sidewalk? They're supposed to have sidewalks in front of their school. Oh, they get on
I
us.
think Branford can speak to that.
Okay.
It's like this.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Branford Adumwa, Assistant County Administrator. So there's a sidewalk plan on Shady Hills Road from Mary Giala Elementary to Bosley Drive. Design is in 2026 and construction 2027. Also, we plan to put a signal at Bosley Drive, and design is in 2024, which is next year, and construction 2025.
Bosley Drive? Bosley?
Yes.
Can someone zoom in where that is on the map?
Whoa, that's nowhere near the school. That's not anywhere near Mary Giala Elementary, at least on my map. Okay, I just lost it. Where'd it go? That took me far away from the school. When I look, Mary Giala is got Shady Hills on the bottom and Cruz Lake on the north. Is that wrong? That's what I have on maps. So Bosley's not anywhere near Shady Hills.
I think it's above.
Huh?
I think it's above, but, I mean, the section that's right in here is industrials all around.
There,
to
so
the
where's,
side.
there's, oh, that's funny, this shows it, this,
So from down below, Shady Hills then crosses over?
interesting, this shows that as Cruise Lake Drive, and here it's called Crella Drive. So where's Bosley? Well, we got to
Let
rethink
me
that plan.
clarify that with the team.
Yeah,
All right, so this development is south of the schools.
yeah, no, it's just, that was,
No.
you know, the school district needs to do a better job when they have
Well, I'd say
car
there's a,
stacking.
there's a dangerous situation out there, frankly.
Yeah.
For anyone driving on the side of that road on the dirt where those pipes are there, if someone hits one of those pipes, it's bad news. So I don't know if you guys have been, and I'm not talking to the audience, but I don't know if the people have been there to the school, but I think we need to send this tape to the school board because they got to address this issue. They can't have people driving on that side.
Why
with
can't
those
they,
pipes.
why
with
can't
those
they
pipes there.
stack up on the street to the left of the school? Jack, it's just something to look at with them. We're fixing it for Trinity Oaks Elementary because they're stacking up on Mitchell Boulevard. And we're going to change the direction of the parent loop so they stack on the school property. We have to put a light in there just during school hours, but, you know, there's ways to work on school stacking.
And we've worked with the school board in the past on
Yeah,
stacking.
so we
where-
just might need to
especially in
look at
older
that better.
schools where that wasn't really a consideration. So we will take that for action.
Yeah.
But the situation's deeper than that, too. It's bigger. Okay, we've got County Line Road. Hopefully, we're going to get improvements on that with DOT coming up after July. When that road gets done and built, and maybe it's 3, 4, 5 years before that gets done, that's going to bring even more traffic down this way. As a two-lane road, I mean, 52 is a two-lane road for a long time, but this is going to get a lot of traffic, and with 2 schools that are right on there, is it 2 or 3? 4.
4.
All the schools that are on that roadway, the kids need a place to get up and down. Now, when we passed the penny for Pasco, I specifically asked to have money put in to do road improvements for industrial projects coming in because we don't generate transportation impact fees. We're trying to encourage jobs to come to this county. The whole purpose is not having people drive somewhere else. They can live in their own neighborhood and come to work. So for that reason, I think this project is very good, but there's an opportunity there. Now, it doesn't have to just be that source of money. There's other pots of money we can tie into to make these improvements. So I think it's time we go take a look at Shady Hills Road, north, south, all the way down, whatever improvements we can make around here and start working on that. There's going to be some time that we'll have to work on it, but with all that we're working on, it's going to be important that we, you know, provide a place for the kids to go around. I'm very supportive of this development, but I mean, this comprehensive plan use change because it will bring jobs. And years ago, when, you know, we gave bus transit to Moon Lake, they didn't have it there. We then brought it up there too, so that people would have a way to get the jobs as well. The paving assessment up in the Highlands was completely unique. I think it was a good thing we did as well. For those who might have forgot, we did a trailer ordinance on there where they couldn't build trailer homes up there. We made them build single-family homes. That was something we did, board initiated. So it's not like we've left them left alone, but not a lot of growth has come there. But there's opportunities now. And with Moffett right down below, there's some high-end jobs that are going to be coming in this whole area. So growth is coming, and I think it's good to get industrial land, to get these jobs in there, but at the same time, I understand the concerns about bringing in the infrastructure that we need and use whatever sources we can to elevate that up. Commissioner Waitman.
Thank you, Chair. To piggyback on your comments, we're learning that on Old Pasco Road, right? With Rooker coming in, schools and residential mix, it's a north-south corridor, heavily trafficked, just as Shady Hills is. So I'd be supportive of whether it's through the MPO process, Chair, or whatever you think is best to keep traffic flowing safely and not have industrial traffic and residential traffic mixed with school kids. I'm supportive of the best plan that we can put forward there.
And I think it'd be good if we brought staff in to go, let's go take a look at all the roads. One thing we don't do enough of, we don't look at all the road improvements that are coming up. Now, we deal with the MPO, that's one thing, but there's other sources of money, other decisions being made where the money's getting spent. And I think it's time this commission gets those presentations with even the upcoming budgets. Let's go see where the money's being spent. And it used to be the commission has had at least a good chunk of money for program maintenance, what was going to be done in certain areas. I think we need to go back to a little bit more of that, especially when we get situations like this.
Yes, sir, and I think I had mentioned at the previous board meeting about bringing some more transparency of that process to the board, so that's in progress.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions for staff? Okay. Pleasure of the board? And I do support what we have on board here. I think it's going to bring jobs. I think it's going to be a good thing. But I think we need to collectively work together, but
I'll move approval.
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's a
Roll
call
vote.
vote. Sorry, roll call vote.
Please hold. All right, District 1, Commissioner Oakley.
Aye.
District 2, Commissioner Waitman.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Bradford.
Excused.
District 5, Chairman Mariano.
Aye.
Commissioner Mariano, to the residents who are organizing in that area, which I think is a good thing, we're going through our comp plan amendment, our comp plan, what's the word? Study? Evaluation. And I do think there's a meeting coming up in that area. Is that correct?
There's a series of meetings coming up.
Yeah.
So-
Terry? Is there one up in that part of the county? And this is where residents can come and help shape the future of your area?
Yeah, there is going to be a comprehensive plan update workshop, public workshop, coming up later this summer in the northwestern parts of Pasco. It's just a matter of scheduling a facility to have everyone come
Yeah.
together.
So I'm sure Commissioner Mariano will let you know when that's coming up in your area, and you can go and there'll be maps and great times for you to make your suggestions.
And Terry, I know we talked about this before too, as far as like where the meetings were going, and I thought they should be more centrally located, but I think we should have one in Shady Hills as well as the other parts of my district as well to spread out. I saw you added a couple more, so I think the more input we get, the better.
I'll talk to staff.
Okay, thank you. All right, motion passes 5-0. P57.
4-0.
4-0, sorry. We have proof.
Okay, P57 was advertised in the Tampa Bay Times, April 23rd, April 30th, May 7th, and May 14th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, item P58, or excuse me, item P57, is an ordinance establishing the Hillcrest Preserve Community Development District pursuant to Chapter 190 Florida statutes, providing for authority and power of the district, providing for powers and duties of the district, providing for the Board of Supervisors of the district, providing for the district budget, providing for functions of the district, providing for miscellaneous provisions, providing for an effective date. We have staff for presentation if there is interest in one.
Do we need a presentation?
I'm trying to remember which one this is.
Thank you.
Shall we see if we have any public comment?
There is no one signed up for public comment.
Okay.
Did you say this? What number is this? I'm sorry.
P57, the CDD.
It's a CDD? Oh, no.
Move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
District 1, Commissioner Oakley.
Aye.
District 2, Commissioner Waitman.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Bradford.
Excused.
District 5, Chairman Mariano.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. And there was no one on WebEx either, correct?
There was no one on WebEx.
Item P58.
P58 was advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on April 16th, 2023.
Finally.
Waiting 2 years for this.
Finally.
You're taking my opening. Listen, I know that today's been pretty intense, and it's going to be hard for me to curb my enthusiasm to actually be here. So, Keith Wiley, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources. This has been, I think I've been working on this since 2015. So, we did the GO bond, well, we did the master plan, we did the GO bond. We got that done, thanks to the public. Then we initiated some capital plan adjustments, refinements. Then we did the impact fee study, and now we're here. So, I have a question, Mr. Chairman. So, are we going to do the workshop, the extraordinary circumstances workshop?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. I think you should consider P61 and 62 before you do P58.
Let's go to P61. Do we have proof?
Yes, sir. Please hold. P61, Tampa Bay Times, April 16th, 2023. Do you also want me to do P62 at the same time?
Let's do one by one.
Okay, so just 61.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, so which, I'm sorry, for clarification.
P61, we approve?
We're doing
No,
61.
P61.
All right,
Just
so we're
like
doing
you
the
asked
comp
for.
plan first. Okay. Okay, let me switch up here. I thought we were doing the workshop first. My apologies. Is there any way we can do the workshop first? I would prefer to do the workshop first.
Let's do P62. Do we have proof?
I really want to.
All right, so
think it
P62,
makes
we
sense.
have proof. It was advertised in Tampa Bay Times, April 16th, 2023.
Are you comfortable now?
I am so
Pete?
comfortable now. Thank you. Thank you. And so it makes sense. So, all right, so this is the second workshop dedicated to defining extraordinary circumstances, necessitating the need for the Parks and Recreation impact fee increase to exceed the phase-in limitations in sections 163.31801(6)B(c) and D of Florida statutes. So just a quick recap of the statutes. Obviously, this statute limits impact fee increases up to 50% unless you demonstrate the extraordinary circumstances. The purpose of this workshop is to demonstrate that. It does allow the local government to exceed it again if you actually have demonstrated the extraordinary circumstances. The impact fee study is the demonstration of those circumstances. We do need to adopt the impact fee increase by at least 2/3 vote of the board. So legal parameters, just basically for the general public, impact fees must be collected and used to cover the cost of expanding infrastructure. They cannot be used for the maintenance or non-capacity improvements, so no deferred maintenance. Only those who benefit from the expansion can be held responsible for the cost of said expansion. New users are not required to finance replacing public facilities or bringing them up to standard. Again, no use for maintenance. You must have a plan. So we do have a plan. We have a 2022 to 2045 capital plan. And fees must be based on a level of service relative to existing conditions. So back in April, we presented this to the Planning Commission. After we presented last fall to the BCC as a request to proceed with the adoption that the board approved at that time, we presented to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did find that they did not believe there was no extraordinary circumstances to justify the increase. I think you all understand what the impacts of that would mean. Obviously, that would significantly reduce the amount of revenues being presented by the increase to date. So it would ultimately hamper the county's ability to fund the capital plan. Okay, so here's, again, overview of the extraordinary circumstances. The fee hasn't been adopted since 2002. We all know the cost of construction materials have increased. Facility need is based on concurrency requirements. Basically, you're looking at a total budget with inflationary increases around $280 million. It's obviously necessary to make sure that we have all that stuff in place. To ensure the fees cover the cost, in the impact fee study, we selected alternative 2 as the recommendation, which include the inflationary adjustments over the life of the capital plan. Statute does require the calculation of the impact fee is based on the most recent and localized data, which the study does support. Statute does require that the impact fee is reasonably connected to the needs generated by growth. That's the whole purpose of what we're trying to do here. So this map shows basically all the existing level of service for the parks that are in the ground to date. So you see blue, that's the level of service areas defined by 5 miles drive time on existing roads, a lot of white space. The red is basically what would be funded through this fee as well as the capital plan. So as you see, what we're trying to do is we're trying to close the gap on level of service for parks throughout the county through 2045. Again, I think you're all well aware of what this graph is. This is just the producer price index for commodity and construction materials. Still seems to be climbing. We actually got an email from the county administrator wanting to compare engineers' estimates to the actual costs, and I think that we're getting close, but at the end of the day, the costs are still basically skyrocketing. It's an issue. This is the most important slide, I think, so in demonstrating extraordinary circumstances. So lock your mind on the number 42. The number 42 is important because currently right now underneath the existing fee, the Parks Department generates about $3.5 million annually in revenue across 3 districts for parks projects, new capacity projects. It would take approximately 42 years to build the plan that we presented if we stayed at the existing rate. So that's about funding a park every 7 to 10 years. That's a pretty long time. I think most kids would actually grow up in the houses and move on, and then we'd be probably building parks for their kids, I think, at the end of the day. Information I think you're all well aware of. This is just the population growth and census data that I think that PDD presents to you guys quite often. Just a quick overview on the current Parks Department funding sources. So general ops is basically funded out of the general fund at around $20 million. Impact fees I just disclosed. General fund for capital is basically, we go through the capital process like a lot of other departments that are in the general fund, and it's as money is available. So currently, we have no, outside of the impact fee, we have no funding source other than impact fees and requesting money through the general fund. Current fee currently sits at $891 for single family, $627 for multifamily. We are recommending going to a single dwelling unit, and it's a substantial increase. We're going from $891 to $3,450 per dwelling unit. And again, just to remember, that ultimately is addressing a plan that it's not consumptive-based, it's planned. So that is a very high-level summary on the extraordinary circumstances. To my understanding, you guys do not have to vote on that. It's just basically a public workshop. Again, we had the first one with the Planning Commission. Any questions for me?
I'll just make one comment, Keith. You know, I think parks are extremely important. I think many years ago, back in, I think, 1986, that the board went out and actually spent a lot of money and built a lot of these parks that we have currently. And when we had the downturn in the economy back '07, parks got cut 30%, and to get caught back up is going to be tough. The people that are moving in, I'll preface it back to we made a school board impact fee many years ago, and the argument was, and at the time I was pushing to cut the impact fees down to get construction going. And when a lady from Tampa come up and talked to me about, I knew you have high impact fees. One of the reasons I want to live in Pasco County, because you understand the importance of these impact fees to let the new growth pay for itself so that schools don't fall behind. Clearly, we have some issues, what we just saw a few minutes ago at Shady Hills, but I think it's something that we need to invest in the parks. I think the more parks we have, the better the parks are. Keeps kids off the streets, keeps them busy. I always felt that if the busier I kept my kids at night when they're to bed, they were in pretty good shape from there, and I'm happy to go that way. Commissioner Oakley.
I just add to that comment. When I came on board and was elected in, it's been a little over 6 years ago now, we were about 20 years with deferred maintenance on all our recreation parks. And so we had to make that time up, but COVID came along and then stopped a lot of things, but actually it allowed us to have time to rebuild a lot of fields because a lot of things were stopped because of COVID itself. But so we were able to catch up with that. But now with all the growth that we're having in the county and all the fields that are needed to have our kids play on fields and all the developments that are coming along with more and more parks and more recreation areas, we definitely need to jump our game up to catch up, to do the right thing for our kids in our county. So very important.
Commissioner Starkey.
Well, I'll add my 2 cents. So I moved here almost 32 years ago, and the last park built west of Collier Parkway before I moved here was Veterans Park. There has not been a park until Starkey in the 32 years that I moved here, west of Collier Parkway.
Yeah,
Just think of the growth. It's crazy, crazy.
amazing.
Yeah. And Commissioner Stark, when that park opened up, we did the grand opening, which was phenomenal. It was just a spectacle how great that place was.
Yeah.
I get complaints from Little Leaguers saying, where's my Little League field? So there's
Yeah.
still, as much as we've making improvements, there's still a lot more to be done.
Yeah. Well, Starkey's not even done yet, so.
Yeah.
Soon.
Okay.
We're there, we're getting there, getting
Got a
closer.
lot more coming.
They're making progress.
So then we move on to what?
No, this is a public workshop, so you need to take public comment.
Okay, any public comment on P62?
Which one?
Anyone online for
62,
P62?
okay.
Okay, all right, now we'll go close that. Now we'll go to P61.
I won't complain about that. I'll just go to P61. Okay, so P61 is the comprehensive plan amendments. It is a text amendment providing comprehensive plan text amendments to Chapter 5, Recreation and Open Space Element, the glossary, and providing additional text amendments as necessary for internal consistency. This is just the history that I recap, so that's why the workshop was important the first time.
Keith, I'm listening to you, I just have to deal with content.
Yes, ma'am. I understand. I work contacts myself. So what we have here basically is we're switching from a regulatory tool of concurrency when we did the impact fee study to a specific target in the, in the plan itself. So that's the adjustment for the changes, and where you see where we go down in community parks, up in district parks, and down in natural resources parks. This is just a quick snapshot of the actual plan. We were very careful to include the specific definitions of each one, so that way we actually could, in the future understand what a community park, a district park, a natural resources park would be. Further clarification, we wanted to make sure that we understood that there's certain specific or unique facilities that should be co-located with district parks. Those could be a skate park, a BMX park, dog park, et cetera. Timeline for implementation, we need to get this transmitted to the Department of State within 10 days after final adoption in July 11 of this year. Effective date, if the amendment is not timely challenged, shall be 31 days from the actual approval, but just as a reminder, we're actually shooting for an effective date of January 1st, 2024 for the fee itself. So with that said, Parks is recommending board action to authorize the transmittal. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Keith? Okay. And Keith, I'll just make a comment. We've talked about it, but I'll just say it for public. I noticed the SunWest is not on the list,
Right.
but you do have other improvements through your whole plan.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So right now, we need a motion to transmit.
To get a public
hearing.
comment first.
Or public comment.
Anyone here from the public wish to comment? P62.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Edward Briggs, Vice President of Government Relations for RSA Consulting Group, representing the Tampa Bay Builders Association, 512 East Kennedy Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. Just wanted to comment to say, well, thank you so much. We appreciate all the time we worked with staff on this, especially Keith, as we've kind of looked at this issue over the last 9 months and really do support overall the increases that you are looking at for parks. We know it's a very important issue for you and your constituents. I think one thing that we do ask is, from the TBA perspective, is that when looking at this going forward, that you do consider what we talked with the staff about, the 60/40 2-year phase increase. This is something that we came to an agreement on with staff, and we hope that the commission would honor that. So thank you so much.
Mr. Briggs, if you'd stay on, please. I just want to talk about that a little bit. And I'm sympathetic to the increased cost it's going to go, but the people are going to be paying it when they get there. And I think it's a big positive for them to actually see that money's going to go into parks. Now, one thing we've talked about at the commission is to actually look at taking the permitting fees that you guys are paying now currently and bringing those down. So I don't know how much it's going to be an offset to it, but I think if we get those fees down low enough, there should be an offset, you'd be break even, and that's upfront money that should help you guys right up front. So keep in mind, we don't want to hurt you guys, but we got to protect our people, and I think everyone coming in here is going to say, you know what, I want to pay the fee, I want to make sure I got parks for my kids. So whatever we decide, I just want you to know I'm coming that way. Any other comments?
Yeah, I can be happy to let you manage my phone. Folks want parks, they want fields, and they want them yesterday.
Yeah.
So.
ASAP.
Thank you, Mr. Briggs.
No, thank you, Commissioners. Just to add to, completely, and I think it was important for us to be here, to just let you know that we do support overall the fee increases and everything that you're doing. I think one thing to also keep in mind, even talking with your staff and some of the support, is when these go into effect, as it seems like in January, you all will be bonding these projects, and no matter what, that will be allowed with you all having these fee increases. So the phase-in really wouldn't matter that much, in the sense that if you guys do phase in over the 2 years, you're still going to be bonding these projects at the end of the day. So I just wanted to keep that in perspective. So you will be getting these projects out of the ground immediately. So I just wanted to keep that. But Commissioner, we appreciate the comments on the permit fees as well.
Well, I appreciate you and the Building Association. You guys have been great to work with as we try to help growth come and get the good growth coming in. And we'll be talking a little bit later on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, anyone else here from the public want to speak? Anybody on WebEx?
There is no one signed up.
All right, so we'll close this item. So we need, that's to the board now. Actually, this is just presentation.
No.
No?
This is transmittal to
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I would say Zone 2 looks a little big. I think Zone 1 needs to be a little bigger. What do you
That's
think,
an-
Jack?
All about access.
So P58.
Yeah, now with Keith's permission, we'll go back to 58.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. I appreciate that. I feel very comfortable at this point. P58 is an ordinance by the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners amending the Pasco County Land Development Code to increase parks and recreation impact fees beyond the phase-in limitations in Section 163.318016 Florida statutes. And I think that's enough for that part. Again, most of this stuff is pretty much some recap, so I do want to talk about the recommendation by the Planning Commission that was made in April. The Planning Commission did find that the proposed amendments for the comp plan were consistent. They did recommend approval of the amendments underneath these conditions. A phase-in was instituted and/or a lower fee was brought forth. An exemption for affordable housing was included, an inclusion of a fee for hotels specifically, and requiring that all changes to the 2022-2045 PRNR capital plan be adopted by ordinance instead of resolution. Just some brief discussion on these. From recommendation 1, obviously when we presented back in September, the board did not recommend at that time for a phase-in. We briefly discussed before what a phase-in ultimately would do long-term to the actual revenue generated underneath the proposed fee. Again, that's up to the board's will. Underneath recommendation 2, we felt that the inclusion of hotels into the ordinance was counterproductive based on some of the recent incentives that the board actually, provided to the hotel industry. We want to bring hotels here. Recommendation 3 was that the capital plan itself be adopted by ordinance instead of resolution. So the actual capital plan is really the document. It's the document that it's not actually being proposed to be included into the LDC. Anything that would be major that would be changed that would affect the fee structure would have to be adopted by ordinance, but everything else basically is being proposed to be changed through resolution. Recommendation 4 is the inclusion of an affordable housing exemption, if you will, or discount. That's something that we're happy to discuss with community development, assuming we can figure out what the definition of that would be. As I understand it from County Attorney David Goldstein, is that if it's discussed here and we have time to work on that with community development, we can bring it back on July 11th for consideration by the board. I don't know if that's still standing to be correct, but
It is, but I think the board would have to direct us to pursue that. And as the board's well aware, in the interim, the legislature adopted Senate Bill 102, the Live Local Act, and I don't know if you want to delay consideration of an affordable housing exemption until we've had a more thorough analysis of the effects of that act. But it's up to the board.
Mr. Whitman.
Thank you. I've kind of been really vocal on this topic. I think we need to wait and see what this act does and how it comes and impacts Pasco County. I think we need to give it time.
Okay. Mr. Starkey?
No, I don't want to wait. I don't want to delay.
Okay.
We delayed for 20-something years already.
Well, are we talking about
No
delaying
kicking
the
and
impact
can.
fee or the affordable housing exemption?
I don't,
Commissioner Waitman's talking about delaying the affordable housing
I
exemption
agree.
only.
Yeah,
I don't want to delay, I don't want to wait on that. Am I saying it right?
No.
No?
Okay.
Can't we look at those piece by piece?
So you can adopt the impact fee at the next public hearing as scheduled, and you can implement an affordable housing exemption at a later date if you want to.
Yeah.
That's what Commissioner Waitman is talking about.
Yes, later date, when
Okay.
we know the impacts.
Yes,
Okay.
there.
Okay, there's a public hearing. Anyone like to speak to this item? No one signed up? It's to the board.
Move approval?
Second.
Now, this is
roll call?
your first.
Oh, this is
your
first
first.
reading.
This is no action required. This is your first
Oh,
public
okay.
hearing. The second adoption hearing will be held on July 11th, 2023, at 1:30 in Dade City.
Okay.
So if I could just close with something real quick. Like I said, been working on this a really long time with the team. I do appreciate all the support by the board. Parks are essential. We all know that. Everyone deserves an awesome park. We have a really cool plan, but without finances, you can't get anything done. So I think this is an awesome first step to making that happen. So thank you on behalf of the department and the citizens.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Keep up the great work. Christina, keep them in line. Okay, we only have one item on the public hearings for a consent agenda, so I'm going to skip the consent part, and we're just going to go right to item P59.
Okay, P59 was advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on May 10th, 2023, and by affidavit of certified mailings and site postings.
Okay.
Mr. Attorney.
Do you want the procedures, even though there's one?
Do we need? I mean, it's up to you. We've got one item, so we can
Well,
just hear it.
and I believe your planner is going to be pulling it off consent anyway, so I think we can do the timeframes if it becomes an issue.
Okay. All right, P59.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Ed Zodian. I'm with Long Range Planning. The matter before you would have been a transmittal, and it was initially on consent. However, there was a change made actually this morning, which we will support, but I wanted to provide that to you through a presentation.
Okay.
As you know, the property is located in the central market area, excuse me, on the north side of State Road 52 and west of Kent Grove Drive. The proposal is to amend the future land use from Res 3 and IL to Res 6 to allow for a multifamily development of 231 townhomes. The resolution will be to amend Flu Map 215 and Sheet 12. There is an MPUD that's running concurrently with this, and actually, as I indicated to Commissioner Starkey, the MPUD and this adoption will both occur on July 11th, so they'll both be here to review. Just to generally show the consistency, the following policies are consistent with the proposed comprehensive plan amendment. Res 6. Res 6 is to recognize those areas that are suited for single-family and multifamily residential development. The proposal here is for 231 units. It is also eligible for a density bump because of the Cat 1 wetlands that surround the property. It's in the central market area, and it is highly encouraged to the proposed development utilize this missing middle housing and approach the development in a clustered and compact form, which is occurring here. And the land use, the Res 6, is identified as a compatible transitional land use with the Res 3. As we had discussed in the past, there is a limitation on the conversion of the important employment locations. For your information, both Pasco EDC and Economic Growth reviewed this site, and by virtue of the wetlands, deemed it wasn't appropriate for industrial use. Now, that is a subjective analysis. The next plan, however, the policy Flu 123 prohibits industrial use with respect that's contiguous, to a Category 1 wetland. The economic development analysis was provided and showed that this site, this proposal, will produce more in revenue than consumer services than the net of the IL. Now, the change that's been made is that in an effort to protect the commercial development, which is to the east, they're going to move their east property line approximately 20 feet to the west for about 180 feet. So we're talking about 3,800 or 3,900 square feet in a 68-acre tract of land. Now, it is our position that that does protect the commercial development and does not adversely impact this site, and we would propose that the board approve the transmittal to the Department of Economic Opportunity and for review and any comments.
And I'll just say as a resident commissioner, I've looked at this site, and I think they've also agreed to go fee simple townhomes as well.
They're going to plat, the MPUD includes a plat of the 231 townhomes.
Okay. Any questions for the staff? Commissioner Wade?
Fee simple.
I didn't.
We'll have the applicant address it.
Thank you.
Now, Commissioner Starkey.
Yeah, is this the one that you told me this morning was going on 7-Eleven?
Yes.
So why are we voting on it now? What did I miss?
This is for transmittal to DEO, so we can get their comments.
Okay,
The adoption will be on 7/11,
okay. Just
assuming the comments come back favorably.
in my meetings with them, it was just important to me as they go through this process that they have a connection to another road to the, or a stub out to, so that they can have a connection one day to the north, I think is what they've decided on, but can't just only come out on State Road 52. That would just be a disaster for 52.
And
But
that will
that
be,
comes
that will be a
later.
subject for the MPUD.
Yeah. That's just all the comments I would say.
So, yeah, the property, the reduction of the plan amendment
Yes.
will leave an IL strip or a Res 3
Yeah, I'm trying to
strip or
picture
both?
that.
Right now, it looks like an IL strip.
Okay.
I'm trying to pull that up.
Any other questions for staff?
That's the, sorry, thank you, Judge.
Do they have to be
Commissioner
sworn
Wayman.
in?
What's that?
People that are going to talk on this one, do they have to be sworn in this public hearing?
They will.
No.
No?
This is a comprehensive plan amendment, so no, they won't need to be sworn in.
Okay.
That'll be the other ones, though.
So we don't have
question.
any?
Not, well, we may have some public comment, but let me just,
Yeah, no, okay.
okay.
But this was advertised.
Commissioner Wayman, go ahead.
Thank you. The IL strip, that's the 3,900
Yes, sir.
feet. All right.
Good?
Okay.
Okay. And the applicant? Thank you.
Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey, for the applicant. Yes, our MPUD plan has two stub outs to the north. What was the other question? Do I remember?
Well, that's for later.
That was okay,
I
right?
just reminded
Oh,
you.
platted townhomes, yes. So we did have the ability, when we first made this application, to do a build-to-rent or platted townhomes. All the paperwork has been changed to platted townhomes. Working on the conditions of approval with staff for the MPUD, and I can tell you, standing here, that they only say platted townhomes. So we heard the commentary loud and clear and made the changes to both our MPUD conditions as well as our MPUD plan, which you'll see on 7/11. So
How wide are the lots, Barbara?
I do not have a recollection of exactly what the conditions say as far as the width of the lots
Okay.
for the MPUD. We're just working on that with staff now.
Okay.
This is your comprehensive plan,
Right.
so.
Correct, yeah.
Barbara, will that leave a usable strip of IL, or are you just,
We're just pulling back our boundary,
so that it?
So that it doesn't-
So that you're leaving a buffer
to the
for
commercial, yeah. There's
the
a commercial
commercial to-
piece to our east. They reached out and said, you know, they didn't want our residential comp
Abutting.
plan abutting.
So that may
So-
leave you with non-usable acreage, but.
We
you're-
wanted to take
you're-
care
you're
of our
doing that.
neighbor, right.
You're acknowledging that you know what you're doing, basically, in that
Yes.
matter. Okay, thank you.
We're working with our neighbor, and yes, we understand.
Okay, thank you. So this is a public hearing, P59. Anyone from the, in the audience want to speak? Anyone in WebEx? Okay, it's to the board.
They don't want residential.
Move approval.
They're commercial.
Second.
And roll call?
It does not say.
No, this
No?
would be this is transmittal, so
Okay,
it's.
so it's a real deal, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. P60,
P60 was advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on March 1st and May 3rd, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, item P60 is a zoning amendment in the name of Palm Wind MPUD Master Plan Unit Development by Taylor Morrison of Florida Incorporated, rezoning request from an AR Agricultural Residential District and AC Agricultural District to an MPUD Master Plan Unit Development District to allow a maximum of 319 single-family detached units on approximately 116.75 acres. As of today, we've received a request for a continuance on this item to the, I believe, June 20th Board of County Commissioners meeting here in Newport Richey at 1:30. The applicant is here to speak to the item.
okay. And you wanted to continue it? It wasn't advertised for continuance, we're going to need to ask for public comment?
So yes, if somebody is here that wishes to speak that cannot attend on June 20th, now would be their opportunity to speak. Otherwise, if they speak, they can't speak on the 20th.
So is anyone here to speak? Okay, and there's no one on WebEx?
There is not.
As to the board?
Move approve.
Second.
Or to continue to.
Move to
June-
continue to
June
time
20
certain.
at 1:30.
Okay, move to continue, June 20, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now we're going to go back to our items.
Come back to
R53.
Hmm?
R53.
Which one?
So R53,
Oh.
discussion on the subject of single-family detached lots that are between 40 and 50 feet wide, and on the subject of standards for townhomes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, at a recent Board of County Commissioner meetings, essentially between January and March of this year, there were a number of observations and comments made concerning the development of platted single-family detached lots that are less than 60 feet wide. And these were namely the 40s and 50s, the lots that were 40 feet wide, let's say, and the lots that were 50 feet wide, which we've been calling them the 40s and 50s. We've talked about, and the board has talked about, a number of issues pertaining to parking, streets, green space and lot trees and side yards. And also, at a recent Board of County Commissioners meeting, there was a discussion on townhomes. And during that discussion, there was a number of items speaking to similar issues, but particularly parking, streets, and green space and lot trees. And so what I'm proposing for today is an outline for the discussion for the board to expound upon some of the issues that they've identified in the past. And so for the proposed 40-foot and 50-foot front load lot elements, we might discuss, I propose we discuss potential standards with industry stakeholders on the following items in this particular order. So first discuss lot standards, then discuss enhanced landscaping requirements, then right-of-way, then driveways, then parking, and then discuss the exhibit at the end. And then once the conversation on the 40s and 50s has been had, we can move into the townhomes discussion and there talk about a potential draft policy memorandum. The aim of the discussion for today's meeting is to provide direction to the Planning and Development Department to articulate the BCC stance on the issue through the issuance of what would become two policy memos, one on the 40s and 50s that would help direct the development of MPUDs, and then also an update to the Land Development Code, and likewise the same thing for the issue of townhomes. So on the proposed 40-foot and 50-foot front load elements, these would be the lot standards. It's kind of hard for me to read it from here. Yeah, I need to get a new prescription apparently. So the proposed lot standards, having met with the industry stakeholders and trying to understand what are the main issues with the 40s and the 50s, well, that was helpful if you zoomed in a little bit, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, that's a little bit, thank you. It was proposed that we think about a minimum lot width of about 45 feet. And when there's an enhanced landscape requirement, that we might talk about a 42-foot wide lot, as the appearance of these lot types, and the houses that go on them is of critical importance. The minimum lot depth would remain at 100 feet in depth, and the front setback would be 23 feet to the garage in order to accommodate typically larger vehicles. The front setback would be 18 feet to building chassis, which minimizes the garage dominance on the streetscape. And then there would be an allowance to enable front porches to encroach up to 7 feet within that front setback. Again, in order to give a chance for the building to come forward and not have streets be dominated by garages. The secondary front setback, say on a corner lot, would be 15 feet, and the rear yard setback would remain at 15 feet, and the side yard setback would increase from the current 5-foot to a proposed 7.5-foot setback. And there was discussion to allow a 6-foot side yard setback, so 1.5 feet less than the new default, when there's enhanced landscape requirements put onto the proposed lots. And then also, there was an allowance for the air conditioner pads on the side of homes with an offset to maintain, which I can't read the rest of the sentence, if you could zoom out. Drainage, there you go, sorry. So this would be the lot standards discussion. Do you have any concerns or thoughts or ideas about lot standards? And I would also request or ask the chairman if he has any particular questions for the industry stakeholders. I would yield my space for them to answer.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Waitman.
It's kind of industry or you, Terry. I think it needs to be uniform, and we talked about it in our stakeholder meeting last week. The side yard setback is 7.5 feet or 6 foot with enhanced landscape. I think we just need to pick a number, and that's what it is, because I could see us how we've been doing negotiating conditions and whatnot up here for project by project, and I shared that concern with the folks when we met. So I'm kind of set on the 7.5 feet as that's the standard, and you know, that way in deleting the 6 foot based on landscape issues. So I put that out there for discussion.
Mr. Starkey?
Terry, do you have any visual depictions of what this looks like? Because that sure would, be helpful to see what this looks like compared to what we've been getting, and is it really an improvement? So,
Sure. We do have a visual.
We have a rendering at the end, yeah.
Yeah, we have a visual at the end of the.
visual preference surveys are my.
Sure. Well, we have a visual at the end. There it is. I can go through all of the topics if you like in one shot. I was just trying to give you all a break to think about the different technical aspects of what goes into a lot. But if you want, I would invite the industry to speak to the typical. This is the typical for the townhomes.
What are we looking at? A four townhomes or something?
Go back to the PowerPoint really quick. Yeah. There, that's the one for the single-family homes. Ignore the townhomes for the moment. We'll get to that. But
Do you have a view from the street looking?
the top illustrates this part here illustrates the cross-section that's been discussed with the stakeholders. And you can see when we get to the right-of-way slide, we'll talk about how that right-of-way is divided and what spaces we are creating. But here on the bottom is where you can see, oh, thank you. Here on the bottom is where you can see how the lots are going to be influenced by the proposed standards that I just talked about here. And one of the things that this is showing, this is the 45-foot lot section, and you can see that by positioning driveways strategically along the street, you are able to create some pretty decent green spaces between them, as well as availability for potential on-street parking in between the driveways. In addition to that, we also talked with the industry stakeholder.
Terry, hang on for a second.
Yes.
There's a 2-foot gap, right? Before it's 11 foot, and then 11 foot, and then 2 foot. So how are you going to have on-street parking of the 2 foot wide?
That's the curb. It's a mountable curb. So you park to the side as much as possible.
You
which
can run your
enables
tire
you
right
to-
up onto that.
Yeah. And it allows the car to get around. These are residential local streets, so you
So
don't.
what,
Okay. There's going to be a narrow,
yeah, no, I don't mind on-street parking. I think that,
Mr. Chairman.
I would do it on one side only, but I'm just curious, what does that house look like from the street? Because you're not showing that picture. Are these 40-foot wide lots here?
These would be 45-foot wide lots, yes.
So what does that house look like?
Well, I would let the industry stakeholders speak to the appearance of their structures and
Because I
what
think
kind
it's
of
a garage
commitments
and a
they.
door. And you have a street full of garage and doors. That's just my fear.
And we worked with them, and to their credit, they suggested, and were eager to suggest, the front porch incentive to enable front porches to extend into that front setback area so that they could have the front porches be more visible from the street than the garages.
Commissioner Oakley?
Do we have these?
Yeah, if you look at your pictures down below and you're looking, is that a car in the road parked on the side?
Yes. That looks to be a pickup truck.
Okay, but it's about 4 times as big as a car over here in the driveway. So if you put another car right beside the car that's there parked in the street, you can't drive in between them.
Well,
And
that
a
would
fire
be,
truck or emergency vehicle could not get in between them.
yeah, well, this isn't necessarily talking about the parking regulation per se, but it would be parking, on-street parking to one side of the street.
Right.
But
But it also looks, on those, it looks like if you park, say you park that truck up against the house or to the garage, you're gonna be blocking your sidewalk in this picture.
The, in the
And
cross,
that's what's been a concern of mine ever since I lived in a 50-foot wide subdivision.
yeah, so in the cross-section, that's illustrating a 23-foot setback for the front setback. That would basically take you from this line, or this point at the end of the sidewalk, to the edge of the house. They're showing that they could accommodate presumably the same pickup truck that's here on the street, on the driveway itself. So this is an expansion of the driveway. It's making it longer from the 20 feet that we currently require.
Right. You know, you're making a 40-foot lot bigger. Why don't you just do away with 40s and go to a 50s and go that route? I mean,
Well, I would let the industry speak to that question
okay.
specifically.
Commissioner Waitman?
Chair, I think it's important, Commissioner Oakley, if you look, that's every bit of an F-250.
Well, I got a 350,
I
but
don't, or
anyway.
350. I don't think that's a coincidence.
No, but they gotta measure that out right, or they don't be careful.
What's the tag number on
Close,
that truck?
close, Commissioner.
Gator tag on?
No gator tag on that one.
All right.
What's your school, FSU?
USF.
Should we hear from the industry?
Yes.
Okay. And industry folks?
While they're coming up, I'd like to say one thing. Some Dale Webb product that I've seen, and I'm going out to see next week.
Yeah, me too.
They were, when you do these 40s and 50-foot lots with older, 55 and older subdivisions, the pictures I saw with the parking, you know, because you're dealing with one-person household, one-car household, things of that nature, it clears up this issue. It kind of, if you do that 55 and older community, they work. And Dale Webb's has good product out there that I think works. But it's a separate product than the one we're looking at, you know, other than that. But that particular product works.
Yeah, and I was out at that Bexley property too. And it really, they did a really nice job with it, so. And I think when you look at the adult community over 55, it can work a lot better.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Briggs?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good to see you all again. Edward Briggs, representing the Tampa Bay Builders Association. Just wanted to say we appreciate the opportunity to have worked with you all, but also with staff on this and what we have before you. We know these have been a kind of a hot topic over the past several months, and something that you guys have been looking at. So with me today, just to let you all know, from the industry, I do have Brian Bullock, VP of Homes by West Bay, and the President of Tampa Bay Builders Association, as well as Martin Frame, with David Weekly, who is the incoming chair for the Tampa Bay Builders Association, and then Trent Stevenson with Level Up Consulting, who is the Tampa Bay Builders Association Pasco Government Affairs chair. And so really what I'd like to do today is these guys put everything together, but really turn it over to Martin and really Trent to kind of walk you through the 40s and 50s on the townhomes, as well as the elevations that you see before you. And also to address Commissioner Starkey's comments, we can definitely put some elevations together and give you that front look. So, and I do have extra copies here, Mr. Chair, if you all want them as well.
All right. A motion to receive and file?
Move to receive and file.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for the time today. Martin Frame with David Weekly Homes, incoming president for TBVA, coming in next year. We worked very hard over the last couple weeks to put together all these different standards. We put together both townhome and 40 and 50-foot lot standards. We brought together pretty much every builder that's a sizable builder in the Pasco County area to put comments into this. And so this memo is a joint memo between a lot of different builders that are part of our organization. I think we've got a lot of pieces in here that are important that work together. So I want to go through this completely, if I could, so that you can see some of the interrelationships between them, because I think that's important. Some of the questions that you guys were asking were looking at other sections, which I think are addressed. So if we could start with the proposed standards, the lot standards where Terry was before. So Terry went through this pretty thoroughly, so I won't go on too much here. The idea behind trying to get the 42-foot lot versus the 45 and having an incentive to do that 42-foot lot, we would be able to save, have a little bit more density in our projects. You're probably talking $15,000 of cost that would be added for each additional lot by expanding this out to a 45-foot lot versus the current 40-foot lots today. That cost goes right to the consumer. So there's an affordability aspect to this presentation as well that I don't want to lose. So with the 42-foot lot, is what we're trying to do with the enhanced landscaping package, which is the next section. If you could go to that real quickly. We're trying to give a very attractive street appearance and create a nice streetscape, which I think is a lot of the issues that the board has had over the past couple of years with some of these communities that have been built. A lot of the examples that I've seen have got sparse trees, sparse landscaping, a lot of parking in the townhomes where all you see is concrete and cars. So is what we did here is we created some standards that were over and above where we are today by creating more shade trees, and we want to make sure that we are looking at shade trees here. We're not looking at some of the ornamentals, which could be smaller and less impactful. And we're also looking at some incentives for builders to bring in some more building forward design. So even on a 40-foot lot, you could build a home where you've got some of the home that's in front of the garage. There's a couple, we've reached out to the various board members. I'm hoping to do a tour with each one of you through a couple projects, one of them at Wiregrass, one of them at Bexley. And I want to show you some of the things that we've been able to do with the Wiregrass folks on a 40-foot lot. And I think that you'll find it pretty attractive, both with the landscaping packages, but also the building design itself, and that you can get a home on a 40-foot lot that's attractive, feels good. And some of that is that building being out in front of the garage, so you're not driving down the street purely seeing garages, which I know is probably an unattractive feature that has got some of you guys against some of these lot sizes that we're talking about. So within this building standard, or the enhanced landscaping standards, we have additional street trees. There's a couple pieces when you get down here into the right-of-way section that allows more street trees to be planted, and that's a 7-foot strip of grass between the back of curb and the sidewalk. With 7 feet, you've got more room to be able to put a tree in there and have it be a livable scenario where that tree is going to survive. And also in the front yards, we're working with staff to try to figure out a way to get the easements needed for utilities smaller, so that we could have trees in the front yards and in the sidewalk strip of grass for homes that would be able to provide a better landscape package from the tree standpoint. And if you look down a little bit further, you see a landscape bed minimum. So another feature that I think will go a long way in creating this nice streetscape is the landscape beds. And that's going to be your plant material that's going to be smaller shrubs and things like that. But having a minimum amount of those beds throughout this each lot, you're going to get a more attractive appearance, and it's going to feel better as you're driving down the street.
If I could, just a quick question, as far as the trees go.
Sure.
When I look at the trees in the yard, you can put a bigger tree in there and not have a problem. But we even had a gentleman this morning, sometimes you put a different type of tree, like at Ballantrae, where they put these big oaks, I guess, and they grow up, and all of a sudden they're tearing up the sidewalks.
That's right.
So I don't know You segregate what kind of tree is going to go in that median?
You
part?
do, yeah.
Okay.
So there's certain species that are more appropriate, like maples, that aren't going to have their root systems that are obstructive and destroying the sidewalks. And some municipalities were actually banning oak trees from being in that strip for that exact reason. So there are some trees that could go in there that are still shade type of trees, and the maples and things like that actually grow pretty quickly too.
And they'll be designated when we set this up.
I'm
Exactly.
curious, do you live in Old Northeast or Hyde Park or
St. Petersburg,
South Tampa?
an historic
Yeah.
neighborhood in
Are
St.
there
Petersburg.
oak trees
There are,
all
and they're-
around your sidewalks?
And they're destroying all the sidewalks and they're dying and, yeah.
But would you rather have your oak trees or just step up a little on your sidewalk?
Well, this has given you
I
more
just think
room
that's
too.
overrated.
And I will not pretend like I'm the landscape architect. Trent's got a great landscape architect in his shop that could help speak to the better species and what species are appropriate for the right places. And that's what we want to do with staff, is to work through that type of landscape list to make sure that we're putting the right trees in the right places. Because it is important.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just saying the highest real estate around has messed up sidewalks, that's all. They figured out a way to deal with it.
So those pieces, I think, are all interrelated. It's the right-of-way, it's the landscaping, it's the lot standards. All of those things that we've tried to do here is to create a better streetscape and a better appearance for our neighborhoods, and to preserve the 40 and 50-foot lots and a little bit different capacity. So it's not going to be 40s and 50s anymore. It may be 42s and 52s, hopefully. Just going through here. Some other things that were mentioned as far as the right-of-way, staggering the driveways so that there would be more space, more green space to allow for better trees. And those trees would have a better root system, so you could actually plant some oak trees in some of these front yards where you had the right space. And the 23-foot driveway, another important aspect that's going to help with parking of the larger trucks. So you could fit the larger trucks without them overhanging into the sidewalk. That also has the benefit of giving you more green space as well, because now you have a 23-foot setback in many of the homes to plant more trees, more beds. So all those different pieces go together. If you have any specific questions about the right-of-way sections and some of the engineering, Trent's here to help with that. But I'll go in and wrap it up.
Well, did you have any pictures of elevations?
So the process over the last 2 weeks to finish this memo up was, I probably personally spent 20, 25 hours. And we probably have more than 200 hours of different people getting into this to have their different input, because we wanted to have a consensus among all the builders so that it's something actionable across the industry. I didn't have time to get all of the pictures put together because we were finalizing some of these details. I'd love to be able to tour each one of you through some of these projects so I could show you real-life examples in person of what a good 50 and 45-foot lot feel like with the landscaping, with the trees, and with setbacks.
With front-loaded?
Front-loaded.
Just tell me neighborhood, I'll drop a pin and.
Wiregrass, Persimmon Park.
What was it called?
Persimmon Park.
Persimmon Park, okay.
I'm a little bit biased.
Commissioner
Well, y'all
Wade,
build nice houses.
So what's our side yard setbacks currently?
5 feet. Or
So you're saying it's 15 grand additional home,
to go from a 40 to a,
from a 6-foot side yard setback to a 7.5?
no, from a 40 to a 45, you end up losing about 10 to 15% of the lots in a community, depending on the configuration of the community.
So I see rear-loaded. Aren't I looking at rear-loaded?
There are some rear-loaded in that community, but there are some streets that are pure front-loaded as well.
So did you have problems selling the rear-loaded ones?
Not in this market.
Just saying.
They are more expensive to build, though.
I know
Wade,
they
anything
are.
else?
We're trying to make them cheaper.
Yeah, so I'm trying to.
Commissioner Wade, anything else?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm trying to get some consensus here, because there's two options. If there's a 7.5 foot and a 6 foot. And this board's known for really having great dialogue on projects. And so when there's wiggle room in there, it can make for a long day. So I'm trying to get consensus here on, are we good with the 7.5s with the option for 6? Or do we want to go with a 7.5 side yard setback that is the standard, and basically cut out potential back and forth on that option. So,
I'm flexible to it. I know I've heard tightness of it is difficult with some of the air conditioners, putting them in there. That's why they're trying to keep them shorter so they can move them in the back. Don't know if it's a good idea. Some have done it, so
so are you thinking that larger side yard setbacks?
I'm leaning that way. Commissioner Oakley?
The larger setback be good, give you a little more room in between houses, especially if you're gonna move an AC unit on the side. With the 5, you have no room, so it's, that would be a better thing. Of interest to me also is the fact, how wide's your road gonna be, your interior road?
11.
11 feet.
22 feet.
No, it's gotta
Trent
be more than
Stevenson,
11 feet.
Well, per lane.
Could you pull up the,
Oh, a lane, but
I zoom in on the cross section? Yeah, the top one, correct. So we're proposing 11-foot drive lanes with a 2-foot Miami curb. So you'll have 26 feet of drivable surface. So, and we are proposing that parking would be on one side. And so with that, you would have, if they used the curb on one side, you would have roughly, 17, 18 feet to drive a vehicle through. So I understand that parking on both sides is off the table. We
yeah,
would
parking
limit
on both sides.
Right, we would limit to one,
Kills you.
but limited to one side, you would still have the ability to
So in
have,
most,
fire
most where I was at, they would park on both sides, and you had to drive down the center of the 2 lanes to actually get in and out of the houses that were in there. And if you had a fire truck or an emergency ambulance coming through, there's no room for them to get through.
Agreed.
So you can't park but on one side, but it will be designated which side, or people are gonna pick their side?
Well, I
Then
think
you'll have on
it would
both
have to be
sides.
designated, I mean, like,
But there's gotta be some kind of control, there's gotta be either a HOA or some kind of management there that tells them when they sign in, they can only park on
that's
that one
correct.
side.
And the HOA would be responsible for that.
Right.
And that was, and again, if you could slide up to see where the driveways are. Okay, go ahead.
Commissioners Clark Hobby, Commissioner Oakley, to address your concern, the last couple of MPUDs that I've done, we had worked some language out with David to have the HOA control the parking only on one side. Interestingly, the board should know that the general consensus in the development business is that our policy historically has been to prohibit all on-street parking. I don't find that it's actually codified in the code, and we looked a lot for it the other day, but I think there were some policy decisions years ago, and so most of our communities weren't built around the concept of doing parking calcs with on-street parking. But in any event, we have the standard language to work with it. And just, Trent's going to get into this a little bit more, but I just want you to know the 20-foot driveway was done specifically to address your concern about the overhang of the
understand that,
vehicles.
yeah.
We tried to get it long enough so that you can get the full vehicle up there, but it's not so long that people try to park a second one and then you're covering it with a second vehicle.
But then you have the issue of fact, if you park on one side, that's okay, but people have guests. Where do they park? Because there's not gonna be enough room for
Well,
2 or 3
I'll let Trent
couples,
take
so
that
is there
part.
gonna be extra parking somewhere in that development?
Sure, and I think one of the reasons why we strategically showed our driveways the way they are, in most communities, you don't dictate the driveway, the swing. Usually the buyer selects which side they want. We would dictate it, so you would create a larger area. So if you can see the 2 driveways on the bottom, those are closer together. So you've got like 15, 16 feet between the driveways. As opposed to the next set of driveways, you have like, I think it's 39 feet in between. So you have ample space to park 350 if you wanted to, and not encroach into anyone's driveway. So that's where we would try and have the guest spaces.
Mr. Starkey?
I took some pictures. I didn't find a lot of the front-loaded persimmon parks yet. The first one I sent you, Gina, Commissioner Oakley, I think it's your neighborhood. I drove through there after your former new neighborhood. It's the one with the houses on both sides. How wide were those lots? The estates at Fort King.
50-foot lot.
Okay. This one,
No room to put.
well, do you have that one, Gina? The first one I sent you?
50s, yeah.
Nope, nope, that's the last one I sent you. Nope. Nope. We're working our way backwards. Well, you know, we can talk about each one that comes up, I guess. So I think this is one of the front-loaded 40-foots. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the alley. You're in the alley.
Oh, I'm in the alley? Okay,
The alleys even look great.
okay.
That's backloaded. That's backloaded.
That's rear-loaded.
I thought, man,
Okay, throw up another picture. This is rear-loaded. That's a nice-looking street.
And
What-
they have parking spaces in front of the houses.
Front of the house
Space.
and in the back.
Yeah.
What's another picture? Okay.
Commissioner Starkey, if you look up Orangeberry Drive.
It's just that, that it may not have populated on Google Earth yet. Orangeberry?
Orangeberry is where the front load.
That looks like my old development.
Well, that's showing up in Ohio.
While you are looking for pictures, can I just say something real quick? Barbara
So-
Will Heights, 6327, just one thing real quick. As you're looking at pictures, just one perspective regarding the side yard setback and trying to figure out, is it 5, is it 7.5, is it 6? So I heard about this forever and ever, 5, 7.5, 6. So I owned a home in Trinity, I represented Trinity, I went to the Trinity Community Standards. I never heard of 6 before, by the way, until these folks explained it to me. But I looked at their standards from 1987. They're actually like typewritten. And the standards never changed. From 1987 to the full build-out of Trinity, guess what their side yard setback was minimum? 6 feet. So what I just ask is, that community was successful. I lived in it, I owned a home in it. A lot of people built in Trinity. Give them a chance to get some renderings before you decide the 5 versus 7 versus 6, because that surprised me, but I was like, what were their standards there? It was good in 1987, and they developed a whole project pursuant to it, successful project. We should maybe look at that. So I wanted to throw in there while you were looking, and I didn't want to interrupt the flow, but I wanted to give you that perspective. Thank you.
So this is Commissioner Oakley's former
That's
neighborhood.
the states of Fort
Yeah,
King.
and it's just the landscaping packages that we
The
allow.
only problem with that picture is you don't see anybody parked in the road. And they're parked in all the
Yeah,
roads.
because that was the time of day. So this is not about the parking picture,
Yeah.
but Commissioner, when I went through there, I could not believe the $5 landscaping packages that everybody had. And if you look, it's the one same bush. I mean, so
There's
we
no
need to have some kind
Basically,
of.
no good landscaping.
And this is what happens when you have the lowest setting the floor, that, you know, so we have to regulate to the low, sadly, because we have people doing this. And a county full of that is a county full of not what we want, not what we're trying to build. So, so we're going to have to maybe say, well, I once said to Clark, a percentage of the house price, and he freaked out. So someone else said maybe it's a percentage of lot coverage that has to be landscaped, but that's abysmal right there.
Well, and
And
that's-
shouldn't be allowed.
That's
But-
what the text gets at. So if you look at a 40-foot lot, the minimum bed area would be 100 square feet. So that would be plantings within the bed area, in addition to the two trees that would be in front of that house.
But I'm just on record that I just cannot support a 40-foot front load. I will support a 40-foot back load, rear loaded only. That's just me. But a street full of 40-foot front loaded, even if you have a tree, is it even a single-car garage and a tree? So for me, the incentive is, if you want to build 40-foots, you can do it, but rear loaded. And I think they do sell, because you sold them in Persimmon, because most of the streets there I'm looking are rear loaded.
And some of VOPH, they've shown us they showed us a product that was 40-foot front-loaded. They have come back and shown that same product rear-loaded, and that's the way it's going to be. It's not going to be front-loaded.
Yeah.
Now, Commissioner Starkey, did you look at the, I think it was the Del Webb project for the seniors up in Bexley? Those
No, I
40-foot
haven't
lot.
seen that yet, but someone's giving me a tour.
Okay.
I'm taking one next week.
Yeah.
All right, so I think as we go further, if you look at that, they actually have them regular loaded, front loaded, and they had the parking on the street as well as on the side, in the regular front of the house, more like these. And the way they did the architectural, it actually looked good.
Is that Taylor
Again, I don't think it
Morrison,
works in a
or
regular development. but
isn't that
for
what's in,
seniors-
Pulte Del Webb.
what?
Del Webb, which is Pulte.
Oh, it's Pulte. Okay. I don't know what they
Pulte
are.
is Del Webb?
They bought Del Webb back in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't, I'm trying to think where Pulte.
It's a nice product. The one
Yeah,
I saw,
no, it is.
was 55
Commissioner-
and older.
Yeah, I just haven't seen them
Hold on
yet.
one second.
May I
Let's go back and forth.
respond to one of the comments, Commissioner Mariano? Two things. Number one, just so you know, the memo you adopted a year ago prohibits that streetscape already. That was the
And
whole
this is
point.
brand new.
Which community? I thought this was Commissioner Oakley's.
Estates of.
Yeah, they're still
Fort
building in
King.
there.
Yeah,
It
it
was-
was
it was
approved like
produced-
5 years ago.
It's
Yeah.
about a year
So
and a
we
half or
could
so
not,
ago that it was
for any
built, so-
MPUD from a year ago, could not build that because we're requiring 2 front trees, one of which has to be in the lot and the other one can be in the street. So that's not even allowed. And the second thing, I just wanted to point out to you what I think the Builders Association is saying is we're not even proposing that we keep 40s. We're going either to a 7.5 side setback or 6 with an incentive. So you're going to either a 45-foot lot or a 42. So you're increasing the width, and we're pushing the driveway out longer, and we're proposing more landscaping. So we understand the issues you're raising very clearly.
I can't do it.
Well,
I
it's
will
not
go
a
look-
40-foot lot. I mean, that's the point I'm trying to make. It's not a 40-foot lot.
Well, these are all 50s on these. And
Right,
today,
without
like
any
you say,
landscaping.
They can't be built today. So like-
Right, they can, yeah.
And I think Clark's point on these, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the changes that were made a year ago have yet to even come out of the ground. So this is, you pull this lever and you've got 18 months probably. at the
My
soonest
only
before you
issue
start
with
seeing
this
these
one,
things.
my only issue with this one, because it's not showing the parking issues, but I've seen them all around, is the percentage of landscaping on the lot. That's all. I know he's had other issues, but it's not shown here in that photo, that's all.
We can't do this anymore anyway.
Yeah. But as far as the, well, I don't, that's how I think we should be doing 40s, and I would be for the 7.5 foot.
I'd like to study this a little more than giving an answer today, because when you talk about the different size lots, we need to pay a little attention to that and not make a quick decision, but
Yeah.
make one that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not willing to make a decision
Yeah.
today. I want to go see.
That's probably the biggest thing we asked for is,
Yeah.
this was done in a very quick time frame, and I'd like to take this, work with
Gina,
it,
can you put the other pictures?
not only with you, but also with staff,
Yeah.
to create a better plan, a more refined plan, to show you some of the things in the field of what this stuff looks like, so that we could all make a very complete, good decision that's well thought out and well discussed. Because I think
That's
there
what
are a
we-
lot of pieces here that we could explain in the field, in person, a little bit better than I can sitting up here.
So,
And I'm-
but the product we've gotten in the last few years of us wanting 40 or 50-foot lots
Go to another one.
has not been very desirable.
Completely
And that's
agree.
what's developed our idea, we don't want any more of that.
No, completely understand.
If we can
And
tune that to be something very nice, then that's a different story, so.
That could be all I said.
And I'd be happy to take those tours with you too, if you want to set something up with my assistant. Happy to go out there.
And I've got something with
Okay.
Ms.
Yes.
Starkey set up.
And now, is this your product too?
No, that looks like Astoria.
No, I think I dropped a pin there in Wiregrass.
That's going to be Lennar's.
Wow.
See?
Shocker.
Yeah, with the right standards. This is the perfect example, though. This is with the right standard. Everybody can build good housing.
I agree,
So
and it's rear loaded.
this was Scott
Picture if that was
Sheridan,
all
and the-
garages across the front. But it's nice, and it's going to age well. That's my
And
point.
the Porters drove that.
So
They
this is
drove the-
being regulated by the
The
master,
developer.
developer.
And is what I'm taking here is
Need more
a
of
lot
those.
of master developer ideas that I deal with day in and day out, and building in Bexley, Astoria, Persimmon Park,
Starkey, but we're
Wiregrass.
not getting neighborhoods like that anymore.
But Starkey's got beautiful 40-foot lots.
It's done.
They've
Yes,
got
they're rear-loaded.
front-loaded too.
There are, no,
West Bay's built them.
now I get that in a development, not every lot can be rear-loaded, because when you get along the edges, you can't rear-load those. And I'm okay with that.
And there's a
But
lot of
everybody else
additional-
got to be rear-loaded.
There's a lot of additional costs too. I worked with Terry a little bit to look at some examples in Persimmon Park where you saw that rear-loaded product. That rear-loaded home, same square footage, costs about $16,000 more for me to build.
So how many 60-foot lot developments have you brought us, lots have you brought us in the last year?
60 foot?
Yeah.
I'm building right now in Chapel Crossing, 60-foot lots.
Like how many?
How many lots?
I'm just saying, all we see up here is 40s, really. I mean, you're not sitting where we are, and that's really what we're seeing every day, day after day, is 40s, and it's concerning.
And
It's
we
concerning.
also built 60s in Astoria. So we've built them a lot. I'm trying to get Scott to sell me some 60s.
What's new that's 60? I'm
Hopefully
putting you on the
Wiregrass.
spot, I know. What's new that's coming that's 60?
No, there's a lot of them. I think the issue has been, though, that you guys have been focusing on the 40s and 50s. There are plenty of 60s that get built. We're building a lot of them ourselves.
That's what that's literally all we see, right, guys?
All right,
Have you
so-
seen any 60s?
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
I've seen
I'm
many
Brian Bullock.
60s.
I'm with Homes by West Bay. And so our
They might build
bread
a
and
few.
butter is 60-foot and 70-foot lot product. And, you know, we were very successful in Bexley as well as Starkey Ranch doing that. The issue we've had recently is just we've sold out
Yeah?
in Pasco County. So we ended up having to move south, but we're coming back strong. So I think we're going to break ground later this year in Two Rivers, which is State Route 56 and 301.
No, we know where it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a huge area there.
Is that on the
that's-
Hillsborough side or the Pasco?
All Pasco.
That's
All
in
Pasco
District,
now.
that's in District 1, and I
Right.
look forward to bigger lots, not
Right,
smaller lots.
Right, absolutely. And then in the villages of Pasadena area,
Mhm,
there's
they
several
changed it.
parcels there that we have under contract. Unfortunately, there we're just a little bit further out. So I think total in villages of Pasadena, we have about 2,500 lots. And a lot of those are going to be 60s and 70s, because that's really what our core business is.
Now, aren't you
think-
going to be, I think you're going to be in Angeline?
We'd hope to, yes. We're trying.
You know,
We
It's-
want to be there.
well,
So, yes.
we can't have only 40s in Angeline next to, you know, the Moffett,
We're gonna have
all those
bigger lots.
doctors and researchers.
But the fact of it
Mr.
is, a lot of residents are moving here from out of state and other places.
Right.
You know, you always think, well, they want smaller or get more people in, and more people want smaller lots and save this. But people are really wanting a larger lot and a nice home.
Well,
So,
I
at
agree.
60s and better, I'm for.
So I agree. I believe that's the dream. I will say,
Yeah.
though, that our 40-foot lots in Bexley and Starkey, those were selling at 500 to probably 650 in terms of a price point.
Well,
So
building a-
we were able to get a premium for
Yes.
them because they were nice. So
Right.
I think that's what it is.
That's the
It's-
keys right there.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. So you can do 40-foot product very well, and it's going to appeal to people. Now, the difference between rear load and front load is families want a yard for their kids to play in. So I agree. I think from a street standpoint, I think you can make both a front load or a rear load home attractive. And it's not just the landscaping, it's the architectural detail that you put on the front of a home.
We can't regulate anymore.
Understood, but I think
Do what?
our price points are getting to the point where people are going to be forced to deliver a better product because no one's going to pay $600,000 for a home that's just not, that's not worth it. So,
I want to make sure you guys know that.
Did that law
What was
pass?
that bill, 1604? 1604, we can't regulate architectural detail anymore,
Yeah, but it's on 40 and 50-foot lots,
on any house.
on any house.
So I'm,
Well, you better be a good builder, because if you're not, I don't want you.
well,
I don't want
imagine
regulation,
40s
just
with
don't
no
come back.
architectural
That's
detail.
okay.
That's another reason why I told them if that bill passed, I would be against 40s. front-loaded,
I
so.
thought that was only going to be on 40 and 50-foot lots.
And that passed, so.
I said, well, I don't want them anyway,
Couple
so
of points.
it's okay.
Let me be
David,
clear
go
about
ahead.
that. So it takes effect July 1, but it doesn't stop a developer from voluntarily agreeing. They could, on their own, impose architectural requirements, and just like they're doing with
Yeah.
the prohibition on multifamily and industrial, they could impose a condition on themselves to impose architectural requirements. And I think Clark and I are working on a couple right now where they're in fact doing that because they're aware of the preemption.
Yeah.
So they can offer up the ability to do that.
But they don't have to.
They don't have to, but
We don't have to
They won't
approve.
build
you don't
anymore.
have to approve 40 and 50-foot lots either. So
Don't wanna approve
it's a negotiation.
All right, so let me ask a question. I'm looking at the picture we have up here, and it's rear-loaded. Are those 40s or 50s?
Those are townhomes.
Townhomes? How wide are they?
This was a Lenore product, but I think they were 20s and 16s.
Okay. So when you build a product like that, would you ever build them a lot wider? And,
What do you mean?
well, as far as a townhome, but let's say you're trying to like maximize your return, and you want to build 40s, but let's say you're having trouble doing that, and you get setback issues, isn't that a good product to put out as well, or?
We are trying to build more townhomes.
Yeah.
Especially from an affordability standpoint, to try to get price points at a place where middle-income Americans can buy them,
Mhm.
which has become an issue.
Well, and Commissioner, I was just going to say a couple of things, and then if it meets with the board's approval, we've got a fair amount of input from you all on 40s and 50s today, but based on Commissioner Waitman trying to bring the townhome issues to a head, we all literally dropped everything last Wednesday and have worked on nothing but townhouse changes for you for today. So I was hoping we could spend a little bit of time going over those. We know we need to bring these 40s and 50s back to you all, and we're happy to have any further comment on it. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm not going to the townhomes, but I want to say one thing before we leave the 40s and 50s.
Yes, sir.
We need to build a product that's affordable for our citizens. 'Cause
Well, we're trying
Our
to,
own workforce, we probably have 20.5% of our workforce for the county that needs affordable, and we probably, it gets bigger than that, it gets in the 40% range for the whole county itself.
well, so.
For affordable product. $300,000 home's not affordable.
Well, so the number one way traditionally that the industry solved that issue is with townhouses and multifamily. And the townhouses needed to step up their game, but front-loaded townhouses are significantly more affordable, which is why we're trying to find a middle road to say, you've got to step up your game, you got to have better green space landscaping architecture, and we've got new renderings, even from Lenore, that if I had them with me today, I think you all would see that they've really stepped up their architectural game. But again, you have to have some front-loaded products to become affordable with the smaller lot sizes and the townhouses.
Mr. Starkey?
Understand.
So, there's affordable housing and there's workforce housing, and they're not necessarily the same thing. Because really, workforce housing comes with federal grants and tax abatements and incentives and wage restrictions.
Other way around.
Opposite.
Well-
Affordable has those
We
conditions.
know what you meant,
Workforce
Commissioner
is,
Starkey.
is traditionally police, fire, teachers.
Okay.
We knew what you meant.
Yeah, so,
Right.
I mean, a starting teacher isn't gonna be able to afford any of these, sadly. And we're working on projects, and there are some creative you guys remember when we had DRIs? And I think 10% of a DRI had to have a workforce housing, or what's the right term? Affordable housing component, right? And that went away. And I know there are counties that are started putting some of that back into some of their rules. Palm Beach County, for example, has put it back in, and others have too, that if you build X amount of houses, a certain percentage has to be affordable. I'm very used to saying workforce housing. That's what we say in my committee at NACO. And I've talked with Marcy. Marcy, so our community development has a lot of money to help with that kind of housing, and would love to work with you guys. If you would, in any one of your neighborhoods, consider putting a couple of your houses into a pot that could qualify for affordable housing, we're here and ready to pitch in. And I had mentioned that to Kartik, and I just haven't followed up with him yet, but he was very interested in hearing that. So we can work with you to buy down the cost of some homes in your neighborhood, in all these neighborhoods, and get at least a couple of them affordable.
Probably one of the best ways is for smaller lot sizes. I mean,
Okay.
That's where you find the affordability.
Well, you could have a couple, but not all, like 2. That's a couple. I did ask Mr. Carbala to do some research, and I don't know if you were able to. What is the price of a house that adds to the general fund and doesn't take from the general fund?
Yeah, budget's still having to run some calculations on that. We don't have that number yet. But if I could contribute to this a little bit, the affordable issue is far-reaching.
Yeah.
Density obviously helps, and where you place that density is probably another thing that we can look at as we do our comp plan and we're looking through things. We are exploring other items, linkage fees, other types of tools in the toolbox that we can do to help promote affordability amongst all classes. So just know that we're working on that. I think for the sake of this discussion, they kind of intersect a little bit, but I think it's probably a separate topic altogether for us.
Another discussion with, we don't have the right people here, but just wanted to throw that out there to you.
Well, let's face it,
Townhomes, too.
the reality is, the bigger the lot, the more expensive it is. Rear road at the front end, the more expensive it's going to be. So you want a better product or you want a cheaper product?
Do you want the county filled up with front-loaded 40s? Because that's all we're seeing.
well,
Now,
that's what
they're
I'm
doing a
saying, so
few, thank goodness. They'll probably kill it with those. But, what percentage of the county should be 40-foot front-loaded? Well, I'd be curious, how many 40-foot front-loaded have we approved that we don't see yet? Terry, can someone get a number? No, you can't figure that out? Yeah, it would be big math. You'd need like a mainframe computer.
Terry, magician?
We could probably find examples of it, but to get you a full quantity, I mean, the county's a big place.
Yeah, it would be, it's too bad we don't have a way to track that kind of stuff.
I'm reticent to say this, but David can confirm or
I
deny.
mean, I would tell you that
Yeah.
almost there was a time period in the county where DRC, this is going back a long time ago,
Say that word.
did not allow 40-foot lots at all. And I want to say that was, Clark, you remember when that year that was? That stopped? So I would say almost every MPUD since that stopped until today, until about a year ago, allowed 40-foot lots.
So, but where I was going to go was, those MPUDs don't say they're going to be 350 40-foot lots, 50-foot lot, or they don't, do they call them out as how many of each? It's a default at the bottom.
It just says the minimum lot size is 40
Yeah.
feet.
So
It's not going to tell you how many actually got built at 40,
Right.
that minimum lot size.
That's the math problem, is you'd have to go back and look at how they were actually platted out.
Yeah, you probably have to go to each plat and physically count.
But what's built is built at this point.
Right.
Now we're
No,
going
they're not built yet. They're approved, but they're not built yet.
Well, if they're approved, you can't change it anyway.
I know, it's just that you don't know the number of the thousands that we've
We
approved.
have a lot that are already approved.
Right, and not built yet.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Terry?
It would take, we could bring examples back, but to help answer the question a little bit, last year, the board did work on the policy memorandum to address the quantity of 40s that were being seen, and established within the MPUD's conditions of approval that put in place a 50% threshold, if I'm not mistaken, on the number of 40-foot lots that would be allowed to be front-loaded, and then after that, the remainder had to be rear-loaded.
But nobody took it.
We haven't built any yet.
Not yet.
None of the MPUDs that have come in. There was one that I've seen, it might have been Barbara's client, well, it's either Clark's or Barbara's client, that did come in with a mixture of 40s, 50s, and a few 60s.
Commissioner,
That might have been
you haven't
Pulte?
seen these in reality. Just because you're seeing a minimum 40-foot lot width in an MPUD does not mean that's how we build the communities. Almost all of the communities that have approved 40-foot lots, if they're more than, say, 80 or 100 lots, have a division of lots. And quite frequently, we have 60-foot lots, we have mostly 50-foot lots, and some 40s. We differentiate within each community. You're just not seeing it. Again, you approved the memo last year. It takes a year to get a site plan in and approved here. And we're out doing mass grading now on the ones that just got approved a year ago. So you haven't seen it, but we're not going out building all 40-foot
No,
lots.
I'm not saying building, I'm saying coming through, asking for approval.
No, but they all have,
Only seen one.
since last year, all of them have the standard language that David and I worked out with you all that says you can't exceed the 50% lot cap.
Maybe this will help. So
Okay.
do you remember when Twin Rivers was approved?
When which one?
Twin Rivers, that MPUD?
Twin Rivers?
Two Rivers, sorry.
Okay.
Two Rivers was approved, I want to say about 18 months ago.
Okay.
I think
MPUD?
it predated the
Okay.
memo just barely, but regardless, it allowed 40-foot as a minimum lot size, and there are going to be literally thousands and thousands of 50s, 60s, and maybe even 70s.
And
even though it allows
my
40.
point was, and those plats are just starting to come through.
Right.
That's the
You're just now
delay
seeing it.
frame,
Right.
time frame that you're looking
Right.
at.
So I'm sorry this whole thing takes a big delay. One of the things, and you're going to hear this from these guys when we start the townhouse issue, is that in my estimation, I think Barbara shares my opinion on this, the side yard setback is a really big deal because that relates to the distance between the units. And several of you all over time have told us that you just thought some of the houses were too close and there were operational issues with air conditioners, swales, and other things like that. And I think you're right, and I think you're right, and just a whole bunch of things. So I think we're close to figuring that out. But what we believe you really want to see is a lot better landscaping than you were seeing in the one that Commissioner Oakley showed from 5 years ago. And so that's one of the areas of focus we're trying to get, maybe even into the code now. If we can all agree on the landscaping on townhouses, for instance, we're going to put it in the code. So it won't just be any new MPUD. It's going to be anybody that doesn't have construction plan approval. So you will immediately start to see those coming in much quicker. So, that's part of the presentation these guys want to get to on townhouses, but some of the same processes. Whatever we agree to on landscaping, if we can all get everybody on the same page, we may be able to put it directly in the code.
All right, so we're going to look at the 40s and 50s. Hopefully you'll set up tours for us all, but let's get to the townhomes. Go ahead.
That sounds good, Terry.
So it'll be a similar discussion, at least in terms of the format. We'll talk about townhouse lot considerations, some of the technical aspects of that, and then move into the right-of-way discussion as well as how the units form up on the street, and then we'll talk about the landscaping. And at the end of this, we'll actually talk about architectural features that would be on townhomes as well. So in terms of the townhouse lot consideration, there's been a lot of discussion both for front-loaded and rear-loaded townhouse products over the last couple of months. What's before the board for today, at least, is a discussion for front-loaded townhouse units only. The one reason for that is because the Planning and Development Department is already has a study already underway looking at what revisions we need to make to our ordinances as it relates to traditional neighborhood design, which is where our ordinance considers the townhouse rear-loaded product. So that's underway. Hopefully later this year we'll have something to show to the board regarding that. And so for now, we'll focus on the front-loaded and what the impact is to the street, because a lot of times, and we've seen the pictures, you just have driveways hitting the street and it looks like a large concrete mass out in front of these buildings with little landscape areas. So, sure. while they get that up. So these are the following standards that have been discussed with stakeholders. Front-loaded townhome products would be platted and would have driveway with individual, those that have individual driveways to accommodate parking for each townhome unit would be platted. The front-loaded townhome buildings would be limited to 2 to 8 units per building. This was a ratio that was discussed last year as part of that memo that we talked about a few minutes ago. That was included in there. In addition, the setback is also increased. The front setback is also increased for the townhome product to 23 feet for similar reasons that we just talked about with the 40s and 50s. And also the driveway width, we would consider a maximum of making it 2 feet wider in total than the garage door width on the townhouse product. And this would enable cars to actually open their doors better than what's been currently constructed. So those would be the considerations on a per unit for a townhouse building. So in terms of the rights of way for townhouses, we're using the same right of way considerations as we talked about in the 40s and 50s discussion, with a 50-foot right of way, 22 feet of pavement, that would be 11-foot drive lanes in 2 directions, a 5-foot sidewalk, a 7-foot of sod, or I call it parkways, basically the space between the sidewalk and the curbs, and then a 2-foot mountable curb. And again, you can see it in the cross-section here, how that all splits up with the 22 feet of lanes, the 2-foot of curb, the 7-foot of green space between the curb and the sidewalk, and then the 5-foot of sidewalk. And likewise, in the previous discussion, you heard a little bit about some adjusting or some incentives for the different easements that exist. Similar consideration being made for this product type to allow for additional room for trees and landscaping. Utility easements will be allowed under sidewalks such that 5 feet of utility easement is under the sidewalk and 5 feet is on the lot. And what we've talked about previously, and it was mentioned at the last board meeting during the, I believe it was the handcart 20 discussions, trying to figure out ways to put other utility infrastructure under streets or sidewalks in townhome developments. And so we've outlined that in the proposed standards here. We can come back to the cross-section and have the industry sort of walk you through that. I just want to really quick get to the landscaping piece of it. Similar to how it was discussed in the 40s and 50s discussion, the following table shows you a minimum of landscape bed or area that would be required for the front-loaded units, also to try to break up the amount of pavement that exists between the building and the street as the driveways reach for the street. So in a 2-unit townhome building, you would have a minimum green space of 650 square feet with 2 minimum shade trees. That amounts to 15% minimum landscape beds of green space. And then you can work your way down the table. In a 3-unit building, 800 square feet. In a 4-unit, 900. In a 5-unit, 1,050, and so on until you get to 8 units, which maxes out or tops out at 1,500 square feet of green space. And the number of trees increase with the number of units that are proposed on a per building basis. All of that amounts to approximately 15% of the area would be green space.
Do we allow 8? Do we allow 8s?
Yes.
I thought we
We-
made
we
it just
stopped-
to 6.
We stopped 10s and 12s.
Oh, gosh, okay.
Yeah. Last year, last March, 2022. Shade tree ratios are listed here at the bottom of the table. Any lot or trees required by the table above will be shade tree or palm tree, and it has that ratio of 3 palms to every 1 shade tree. And you can't substitute with understory ornamentals. Driveway flares, we resolved last year in March of 2022. Driveway flares are not required for townhomes in order to encourage the landscape areas and to reduce that overall pavement appearance that occurs. And then finally, I'll just quickly run through the architectural features. So townhouses, it was discussed with the industry stakeholders that townhouses are slightly different creatures than single-family homes, where we talked about the appearance of single-family detached homes. There's a market for the uniqueness and curb appeal that buyers are looking at. The market for townhomes are a little different. They can explain it better than I can, but essentially people are looking for identity and community characteristics in their townhome development, more so than an individual unique appearance on a per-unit basis. That's unlike the single-family detached neighborhoods. Nevertheless, in the single-family detached neighborhoods, we give a list of things that you can do to help articulate a unique appearance on buildings on a per-unit basis. Here, the industry came together and discussed what 3 different architectural features could be accommodated on townhouse developments. And so they gave us 12 different types of architectural features that can be varied from development to development in order to establish an identity or character to the townhome development that is attractive to the marketplace.
But you're going over this, but we can't regulate anymore, right?
Well, you can regulate these 3 units or more.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can't regulate the 2-unit version.
Perfect.
Based
Okay.
on state law.
So no more two-unit versions.
That's simple, yeah, I agree.
So, so they talk about, there's discussion on roof styles, hip, gable, Boston hip, so on and so forth. Arrangement of window openings, which that in and of itself definitely makes a building look different from another. Window grids, siding types, accents on the gables, different stucco treatments that might show variations. Hardy board banding, decorative shutters and brackets, stucco cornices, windows, doors, garage doors, decorative coach lights, and building forward design, again, making an incentive to help bring portions of the livable building, we'll say, closer to the street and make the garages appear receded or behind the porches. So those are some of the
3
architectural
enough?
features.
It was 3 good? Is that what we said before? I thought
Yes.
it was 5. Is that there's 5 on a house?
Well, typically, the builder is going to put more than that. But we had the threshold at least 3 things to make things different.
So, do you mind?
No, go ahead.
So when you say number 1, roof styles, are you saying, I mean, a roof, I don't know why we're calling that out unless you're saying it has to go from a hip to a gable, or, because they're either going to have a hip or a gable or a Boston hip. I mean, so why is that even a style? Because or else it'd be flat, which happens in modern townhomes, but I don't think unless you're saying the roof styles have to vary, we should take that one out. That shouldn't count as 1.
Yeah. I mean, we can let the industry speak.
That's like a
on
freebie.
On what the elements are. But again, it may sound like a freebie, but being.
Well, what's the alternative?
A single roof style is very plain.
Why don't you can't speak from there. I'll have to have you come up, so.
I was going to let the industry speak to that because they're more familiar with it than I would be.
Okay.
But it's important to point out even the obvious because these are nevertheless part of the building. So I'll let.
Yeah, but that's like saying you have a door or don't have a door, you're going to have a door.
Don't have the examples to
Martin,
show
just give you a
you.
name for the clerk.
Martin Frame, again, with
Right.
David Weekly Homes. Worked on this document ad nauseum over the last 10 days or so. This is probably one of the most difficult pieces of this document is the architectural, because every builder does things quite differently. And architectural styles are very much subjective measures. Some things people think are beautiful, and some people hate certain styles. The roof styles, there are some varieties in there that allow you to get some interest in the buildings. where you transition, like you said, Commissioner Starkey, where you transition from one style to the next within the same building. It breaks up the building so it looks like individual units as opposed to one monotone building. So I've got some examples I don't have in my hand right now.
I got some.
But the project that we did just 2 weeks ago that we got approved in Seth's district had that. It had some gables along with some hip roofs, and those two things together made the building more interesting.
Martin, let me ask you a question, though. If we're going to try to, like, you're trying to go to townhomes because they're more affordable, et cetera, one of the big expenses we have with the houses are the insurance rates.
Yes.
So do you get a different price from a gable roof compared to a hip roof when you're doing insurance?
I'm definitely not qualified to answer that.
HIP is the least likely to take off in a hurricane, so they have the best
Right.
ratings.
And I think the building standards, a new building today is going to be your biggest factor in insurance rates. A new building today with new building code is going to get you the lowest rates versus.
If you would, as we're going to be looking at this for a little bit of time, if you take a look at those insurance rates, though, I think you might find that the hip is definitely a huge, huge savings.
Don't know, but we don't want to only have hips.
I'm just throwing it out there.
And if you don't mind, I'll do a quick overview. A lot of the concept here is the same as what we saw in the 40s and 50s. It's look and feel and trying to get more attractive buildings. A lot of the same methods. The landscaping, the trees, the right-of-way section here is the same 7 feet in front of between the sidewalk and the curb to allow for more trees. Moving the driveways apart where you do have the room to do so, to plant more trees. The minimum green space provides you with the room to plant those trees also. We measured a lot of projects around the area that we felt worked, and we've measured some projects which have been specifically objected to with pictures up here. We targeted the numbers that are in here to try to avoid some of the things that have been characterized as not good looking or aesthetically displeasing. One of the main things within that is driveway widths not being allowed to be any wider than 2 feet than the garage door. That's going to create more green space, and it's going to allow the building itself to be a little bit more attractive, so you're not looking at all pavement as you're driving down some of these roads. In addition to the right-of-way section with that 7 feet of green space, also going to create more green space, so you're not looking at pavement as you drive down the road, where you've got a section that's got right-of-way next to curb that continues right into the driveway. And so you've got all that concrete from those 3 different pieces all put together that looks like it's just one sea of concrete. And what we're doing here is to try to avoid that. Please.
Just to point out, that driveway width control piece would mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it would mean a 1-car driveway for a 1-car garage and a 2-car driveway for a 2-car garage.
Correct. And Commissioner Starkey, you had some pictures 2 weeks ago that you put up before my townhome project got heard. That showed a sea of concrete where you did have 1-car garages.
The preserve.
Is that what it was? So this is
Parks customer, client.
We've involved all the big people in the industry to come to these. So I think that what we're going to get here is a much better design that's going to be more attractive. Just running through a couple of the other
Wait,
items.
I'm going to show you a photo of Ed Briggs' client. Throw those townhomes up there. Do you have them yet? Okay, put them up. I think this is Highland Homes. I came across this when I was researching Highland during Senate Bill 1604. No, the townhomes. There you go. That's an example of townhomes that have no variation between them, right?
That would be no variation.
Yes.
But that is what we're trying to avoid here, and that's what these controls are meant to do. Some of the other things that are similar with the 40s and 50s, trying to get those easements for the utilities to be placed under the sidewalk to give us more space to put trees. And we're specifically calling out shade trees versus any of the ornamental trees so that we're getting good substantial trees out there that'll look attractive. On the landscaping section, that table is supposed to be very concrete, very organized, easy to understand. and easy to follow, so there's not questions when we get into designing these buildings and getting the things permitted, to your point, Seth.
Commissioner Waitman.
There you go. No, this is what spurred this was the dialogue at last board meeting.
Yeah. I still prefer rear-loaded. Sorry, I can't, it's hard to get past it when there's such a difference. And I just wonder, have we been able to shave off any of that cost on the driveways? Have we worked with our fire marshal to
You talking
make
about
it?
rear load?
Yeah. I mean the alleys, not
Yeah,
driveways.
I think to be determined. There's a lot of pieces that are interconnected to get with that. I've talked to Terry about it briefly. On a separate goal of mine is to work with him on trying to incentivize rear loads so that they are more affordable to build and they are able to be utilized more. But this is focusing on front loads because they are two different beasts and they have their own sets of issues that need to be addressed. And
how
today,
did your rear load sell in Persimmon?
we didn't build any of the rear
Oh, yeah,
loads.
that was.
That was Lennar Products.
Yeah, that was Lennar.
We are, in our third phase, going to build some rear load townhomes in Persimmon, though.
Nice.
Townhomes affordability, this is probably the best place for us as builders to be able to supply affordability. We're able to get prices down to the 300s and maybe even with a 2 in front of it still in certain situations on townhomes.
Just so you guys know, our fire marshal has been requiring, Sally's looking at me, really wide alleys, because we had to do it in Longleaf, super wide alleys to allow 2 trucks to go by when you have a road in front and a road in back. And they don't require that for a regular house that has the driveway in the front. They don't require access into the back. So it doesn't make any sense to me, and it shouldn't, that's a self-inflicted rule that we've put on ourselves.
And I can help with a lot of that.
Yeah.
We do a lot of rear-loaded product in the city of St. Pete, the city of Tampa, 20-foot wide alleys.
Yeah.
Perfectly functional.
Perfectly functional, yeah.
Happy to help with that.
So, yeah, I think that's a big thing to bring forward. If you have
For us.
other jurisdictions that are doing it differently, we need to have that information so we can work on it.
Well, and even I think Persimmon was treated reasonably favorably. But that took a lot of work from Scott Sheridan and the Porter family to work towards getting those alleyways set up in a way that was functional. So maybe something to look at as well.
I mean, I agree with Commissioner Starkey. This type of product does look a lot better. I think functionally, now you might have heard the story or not, but my daughters had townhomes up in Orlando when they were going to UCF up there. Okay. And the parking was brutal. They had 1-car garage, 3 girls living there. One had a parking spot in the garage, one had in front, and the other one had to find a spot. And the minimal spots we were traveling was like just brutal. It was just a mess every night. And if anyone would come over, when I come over, to find a spot was like, I could be like 12 buildings down. So I do see the merits of this every step of the way. I would love to see whatever incentives we can do to help with this
Yeah.
on the affordable part. Because I think
We
it's something
shouldn't have
that,
rules that make it more expensive when it doesn't need to be.
and I'm glad someone brought that up from your association already, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever help you can give us on what other jurisdictions are interpreting it. And we had other stories about things, we seem to be misinterpreting it with the fire department too, so if we can
Well, and that's
get us
also
the information we
biggest-
need to make it solid, we're happy to work with it.
Yeah, happy to help.
All right. Anyone else want to speak to it?
Oops. I don't know if anybody wanted to speak to the graphic from your team.
The cross-section is very similar to what you saw in the single family. It's a 23-foot driveway to allow room for the trucks.
Right.
Zoom in on the pic.
You've got the same 7-foot strip of grass that would allow more trees, 5-foot sidewalks. That 23 feet of setback also gives you more room for the green space as well, for the trees to be in there. So all those same elements that we're working on with the right-of-way sections and working with the utility department to figure out about getting the easements down to 5 feet on the lot and 5 feet under the sidewalk will go a long way to to getting a more attractive streetscape on both the townhomes and the single families.
And are you, is the idea to line up driveways? Or is this just the way the graphic worked out? Because I know that was what we talked about, is 40 and 50.
That's how the graphic happened to work out for that one, but I think to the extent, as builders are working on their plans to try to separate the driveways, in this case, the two internal units are one-car garages, and so we've offset those driveways to give you a wider green space between those two units.
So question, to this graphic I'm looking at here, this is from up on top. Is this a typical front-loaded townhome?
Yes.
Okay. So that looks like, from just the roof line itself, like a hip roof.
In that case, it is.
Okay.
And I think that was.
One big roof.
This was done more to illustrate the right-of-ways and not so much the architecture.
Okay.
So this is kind of a generic building, focusing on the right-of-ways.
Yeah, the upper one has a different roof. If you look at the.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, good.
It's got a staggered
Yeah,
roof.
no, good eye.
Where's,
The upper drawing.
oh, up there, okay.
has a-
Yeah, multiple things,
has
okay.
the elevation.
I wouldn't mind actually if you get pictures of that so we can take a look at it as well. I know when
I have
Habitat,
some renderings of some stuff that we've just designed at David Weekley that incorporates this very similar for the project that we're doing over with Tony Tanico and Seth's District. Happy to share those and talk about them more
I'd like to
specifically.
see some of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, a little bit biased, but I think they turned out pretty well.
okay.
Okay.
All right. You want to wrap it up, Terry, or is there anything else?
I mean,
We're
I think
good?
he's wrapped up.
Oh,
I mean,
wrapped up?
I would
Okay.
simply,
Any other questions for staff? We're good for now? We'll go ahead and do a little homework, and maybe you'll give us more information, too? Are you looking for direction?
so I would like a little bit of direction. Let me give you what my take is on what I've observed on this great discussion today. I think that there's some additional meetings that you would like to have with members of industry to show you examples and concrete things. I think they've laid out pretty succinctly and logically the elements that I think the board is interested in looking at. What I would prefer here is to bring back a draft policy to you. So what I would ask is after you conduct any field visits or things, that if there's input or items that you have, that we collect that, and then staff can put together a draft policy, unless you want to have another meeting like this to discuss it, and then we come back with a policy. But my preference would be to try to see if we can formulate consensus and build a policy that this board would support. That would be the most expeditious way to handle it. I leave it to you, but that would be my request.
I'm going to probably say it's going to probably take us a month between all of us to get out. We're going to go look at other things. Would agreed?
I think
we get it done sooner, then we can give you feedback, and then you can kind of start incorporating and bring us something back a little bit more.
Chair, I think we need to be expeditious.
If we can do it quicker, we can do it quicker, I guess, but see how it goes.
So, right, so we've got some board dates. So I mean, clearly, whenever you're comfortable, or we can set a target. I need time, obviously, to pull the policy together and.
And I know
do
my
debriefing.
schedule's like jamming for this coming week, and the week after might be better.
So, I mean, do we want to target a draft policy coming back in July? It's either going to be the first meeting in July, or it'd have to be the first meeting in August.
I'm thinking first meeting in July, we should be able to do it, right?
First in July is fine.
Okay, let's go for that.
Okay, we will target that, and we will hound you to make sure you're getting your visits done.
All right. Commissioner Starkey.
Ms. Martin, question for you. Do you only build in Pasco County? What other counties is David Weekley in?
We're in.
Well, you're a national builder, right?
Yeah, and we're in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville. And here in the Tampa Bay area, we're in Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsborough, Manatee, and Sarasota counties.
So in Manatee, are you building 40-foot lots?
Yes.
And like what subdivision?
We've got some that are upcoming. We've got some existing. I've got a 45 and a 50 in, it's escaping me now. It's Neal's Community.
Lakewood Ranch?
No, North River Ranch.
What's it called?
North River Ranch.
Parish.
Yep, and Pulte's got some great 40-foot product in that same community. It's good-looking stuff.
Okay, what about Sarasota?
Sarasota, we're going to be building some,
Not age restricted.
yeah, we have 40-foot, 50-foot product in Sarasota. We've got both front and rear loads on the 40s, and both front and rear loads on 50s.
What's the name of the subdivision?
One of them's Lakewood Ranch. It's being developed right now. We're starting to go vertical on our models probably next month, so it's going to be a couple months before we have models available to view. The other one is Vistera down in Venice. That'll be a 40-foot front load product. It's the same stuff that we build more or less in Persimmon. It's the same product that we're up in Persimmon Park.
And what does Lakewood Ranch have any requirements on the quality?
Yes.
You're laughing.
Well, it
Yes.
depends on where you are. They have everything within the community. So they've got about 2,000 homes they sell a year just in that community, and you've got every single price point you could imagine. You have price points that are very high end, 2 million, 3 million plus, and you have price points that are 300 or 400,000.
I mean, on their 40s.
But I think the commissioner's question is, they have a very active master developer for Lakewood Ranch that has
They
a
do,
lot
but,
of.
but they're not overly restrictive on architectural. They have some of the same builders that build here in Pasco County doing things not too differently in the north sections of Lakewood Ranch, where it's more affordable. The southern sections tend to be the more expensive.
North of State Road 70.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's exactly right. North of State Road 70, right around State Road 70. South of University is their very expensive waterside area that's in Sarasota County. So they've got everything there, and they purposely have tried to hit every piece of the market and allow pretty much every builder that you could imagine that's in the state a place there. I think you've got about 24 active builders in Lakewood Ranch.
And what are their setbacks between houses?
I was just having a conversation today about our 5-foot setbacks
Yeah.
on our projects.
Okay, all right.
How'd that come?
They had,
How'd
they
that
had
come? Was
five,
that-
they had 5 foot on their larger lots, at least back in,
Yeah, and-
back in the early 2000s.
And I will say the standard for Sarasota County is 6 feet. That is the standard lot setback in Sarasota County. You could get it down to 5 by asking for it through a variance, but the 6 foot is standard.
Okay. Very good.
Yep, thank
All
you.
good? Commissioner Waitman?
Am I going to be allowed in Del Webb to look at it?
No, I'll give you the answer.
All right, so that'll do with the agenda. Committee reports. Commissioner Oakley.
I don't have anything.
Commissioner Waitman.
Oh,
Nothing else.
Goodness. Did I have-
we do.
Commissioner Mariano, if I might, I just wanted to say thank you to the board. First of all, we're hearing you, but I also want to thank these guys behind me. There's an army of people that have been working on this nonstop the last 2 weeks. I can't tell you how many people have worked this hard to get this to you all. And we're hoping that some of this green space and landscaping stuff will find its way into the code very quickly, but it's not been without acrimony. There are a lot of people trying to make products fit and make it work in a lot of, in a large county with a lot of development. So thank you to you, but I do want to say thank you to these guys because they've been working their rear end off to get to today.
Yeah, I should have thanked you guys as well. I greatly appreciate your
Absolutely.
efforts. We're just kind of a little bit of a busy morning this morning. But we greatly appreciate your input. It helps us make the right decisions. I think we're all trying to build a great county here with the best products we can, so we appreciate your input.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Commissioner Waitman.
All right. So the governor signed Senate Bill 7064, which is the human trafficking bill. So thank you, Chairman and
All right.
Mr. Stein-Snyder, for sending a letter. And hopefully this will allow us to do better in Pasco when it comes to those businesses. Next. So we had PHSC's 50th anniversary over at the IPAC, and a bunch of community leaders were there, great crowd, wonderful performances, and it was just nice to celebrate having PHSC 50 years here in Pasco and Hernando counties. Next, Chairman, don't steal your thunder, but
Go ahead.
wonderful, wonderful sports coach dinner. I don't know how you're going to top that next year. But great job to the staff and team. We had a great time. Congrats to Rep. Maggard. And, who took that photo? What's next? Oh, thank you to the clerk. Thank you to the clerk's office and for having the Leadership Pasco panel. Thank you. Enjoyed that. That was my first one. And it's great to hear from everybody who's put time and to come and visit and see what we do during the week. Next, we had over at the Crate, congratulations to Felicia and Namish Desai and Blaze Drink Wine. They've, at the Blush Wine Room, they've opened up a second Crate
nice.
across the street for their champagne room. And so they had their grand opening on Friday, and just unique, vibrant little spaces where people come and eat and drink and have a fun time at the Crate. So awesome work done by the team there, and excited to see them expanding their footprint. And then on Saturday, Harley Davidson of Wesley Chapel opened up. That is, Harley Davidson did an amazing job designing this building. This building and this property has the potential to be so much more than just a Harley dealership motorcycle space. It's an event space. It's space for meetings. It's entertainment. And excited to have them here. And I encourage all of you, if you're on, across the street from Pop Stroke on Wesley Chapel Boulevard, encourage every one of you to stop by and really take a look at the architecture of the building and see what they've got going on there. So it was a Chamber of Commerce morning. We had people, they were handing out, Andy stayed all day because they gave away a Harley, and Andy was convinced that he was going to win and he'd be taking his wild hog ride here today, but he didn't. But it was a great way to round out the week, having Harley Davidson right here in Pasco County.
Very good. Anything else?
Nope.
All right,
Thank you
Commissioner
much.
Starkey.
Well, I enjoyed that sports event very much as well. And I also want to thank everyone who attended, the regional commissioners meeting. That was fantastic. It's amazing that that's the first time we've all met. And hopefully we'll have transportation and water up for discussions next time. I thought it went really well, and it was a great meeting place. And
It was a good meeting.
yeah,
Excellent.
and thank you so much for the administrator's help in pulling that together. And I hope that it's not too long before we do it again. So
We've discussed doing it quarterly, 3 times a year.
Yeah.
We're making plans for the next one.
And darn, Commissioner Kemp was sick. So we hope she can, I won't say anything about that.
Do like Carly, let it ride.
So I was out, at the NACO Board of Directors meeting, and we had a really interesting presentation by the Border Patrol agent in charge of Yuma, Arizona. I didn't get to hear all of it because I had to talk with my county attorney. But, what they're going through down there, we can't even imagine what those border communities are dealing with. God bless them. Then we had then one of the speakers was someone from, an organization that deals with national forests, which I want to find out more about. And sorry, I don't have my notes with me. I didn't even think we would have commissioner items today, but I want to show you a picture. This is the forest one, the first one I sent you. No, not that one. I'll show you that one in a second. Don't look. Don't look. That's not the one I'm talking about. It won't open? Oh, darn it. Okay. Well, this is a picture I took. We had the board of directors of NACO and the board of directors of WIR had a joint reception at a golf club by the hotel. And it was raining, so, we had to stay all enclosed in. But when it stopped raining, we went outside, and this is what we saw. So that was amazing. Beautiful, beautiful rainbow reflecting in the pond there. I have some other pictures, but the picture I wanted to show you from the National Forest, which I'll email all of you, it's a side-by-side forest in Montana, and the left side is managed by the feds, and the right side is managed by the private landowner, and the national forest is dying, and the forest on the right side is thriving. And they were talking about the wildfires and wildfire management and how poorly the federal government is managing its lands, and that they should be turning more of them over to the states and local communities. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And so we commissioners that were there listening, we want to learn more about it, because if you see what happens in California when they're not managing their lands right, the wildfires go crazy. So that was good. Yeah, and I think I don't think I really had much more for.
Much more or none?
I reserve the right to have more. As soon as I look at my calendar, remember what I
I'm
did.
going to take a supermajority motion.
Don't have any more.
I did get the norovirus on the way back. Am I saying that right?
The what?
We got diverted to San Angelo, Texas, and spent a couple hours in the middle of western nowhere in Texas, oil fields. And my flight did not leave out of Dallas-Fort Worth till like 1 in the morning. It was bad. Commissioner Constantine spent the night in the airport.
Oof.
Yeah, so we had a rough time getting back. But anyway,
Good.
thank you for letting me attend that conference.
No, glad you're doing it. Your participation there in NACO's been great, so, and very effective. Mike Carbella,
Yeah.
County Administrator.
Speaking of the border, I know that Laura Wilcoxon of our emergency management team is actually out there deployed, helping with some planning efforts. So more of your Pasco team is out there supporting a lot of efforts. Two quick things. First is the Pasco Libraries received the Florida Library Association's 2023 Library of the Year Award. So we're very, very proud of the work that our libraries team does. And libraries are more than just libraries, I can promise you that. But we're very happy and proud of those folks to win this great honor for the state of Florida. So hats off to the team there. The other is a request. We were awarded approximately a $500,000 grant from the state to assist with cybersecurity services. Can't really get into the details of it, but it's a good thing. The grant award needs to be executed, though, by May 31st, and we've just obtained these. So I'm asking for the board to approve for the county administrator to be able to sign this agreement by May 31st. We'll disclose the appropriate information to the board following, but obviously subject to the county attorney's review and approval of the legal documents.
Okay, a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? There you go.
Thank you, sir. I'm done.
Okay. County Attorney's Office.
No, sir, don't have anything. Thank you.
Madam Clerk,
Two quick things.
go ahead.
Commissioner Waitman mentioned Leadership Pasco Government Day, so thank you to everyone who attended. The class really enjoyed it. And then also on April 26th and 27th, we had the student-inspired art walk at both of the judicial centers, and Commissioner Waitman came out for that also, so we want to thank you. If you haven't got a chance to walk through the judicial centers, the student art definitely makes a difference on plain, boring government walls. So that's it.
Okay. Commissioner Starkey.
I did want to say, thank you. I'm going to save 2 of them for next time. But when you talked about the parks, I remembered that Elaine, what's Elaine's last name? At our Parks Department that was just hired? Elaine Smith, who used to work for us, went to run the Parks Department at City of Port Richey, is now back with us as our cultural person. Had I think her first event at Starkey Cultural Library, and they started out with the steel band, the Seven Springs Middle School Steel Band. If you've never heard them, they're really cool, in the outside area. And then they went inside. I actually have a little video here, but I'll show it to you next time. Caribbean chillers, like 300-something people.
Wow.
So we had our first cultural event at Starkey Cultural Center. That's what I'm calling it. Sorry. And yeah, so thank you. Congratulations to Elaine. And I'm glad to see us using it like that. The St. George, where we had our meeting, a county of 200,000 people, it is the fastest growing city in the United States. They've had a convention center for like 10 years. 200,000 people. Just saying.
Let's go.
Let's get one. No, let's build one.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll save it for next time.
That was a
I'll have my pictures.
That was a self-inflicted wound.
Well, you asked for it.
All right, yeah, the tourism banquet was phenomenal. I tell you, Rondé Barber was a phenomenal speaker. I loved what he talked about, talking about coaching, how important they are in the community. And we talked about maybe someday we can actually do something for coaches, run an event for them through tourism and kind of go out and honor our coaches because they are formulating our kids. They teach them how to compete, makes them, I think, better citizens. Randy Maggart, I gave him the Chairman's Award. He was very helpful in as far as making some phone calls to Fish and Wildlife to get us that 37-day scallop season, so he was very appreciative, and I was delighted to honor him. We might be able to have a pretty good one next year, too, because we're going to bring in Tim Tebow, which is no small task.
We'll need a bigger venue.
Yeah.
We're working on that as well. You might have seen it down the street there on 54 on Saddlebrook coming up, but they're in those conversations. The summit was great for resiliency. Regional Planning Council had a great turnout, 370 plus. The topics were phenomenal. It led to a lot of great conversations. And by the way, Brantford, you made a great selection, and Mike, I was telling you the same thing earlier, but Jason Mickle is going to be a tremendous addition. We went up and down the coast looking at possible opportunities for baffle boxes, litter traps, where we got a opportunity for a joint grant for $740,000 with working University of Florida and Levy County, and then the $4 million that Regional Planning Council in the estuary got. That $4 million of that goes to the Regional Planning Council. There's all sorts of baffle box opportunities, and he's got all the experience to go do all that. So I'm very excited about what he's going to come back with a plan, how we go forward. Had a quick meeting at Hudson Beach with our park staff. Those guys were phenomenal, too. We're going to kind of look at bringing something forward to kind of like show everybody what we want to do out there as well and try to get those outside parking opportunities. Thanks for letting those guys come out and go take a look at that. And I just want to say, today's meeting was very tough. We had a regular item. Wasn't supposed to have any public input. Obviously, we got a lot of it. But I want to commend all of you for listening, going through the whole thing, and I'll just give you accolades again, Commissioner Starkey, for making an extra ditch effort that just was tough coming.
Well, I got new information, and it made a difference.
And that's what we got to do, is we got to keep on digging. I was digging hard yesterday, trying to have them make a move. They weren't making it, but I think with enough residents here and us asking the right questions at the end of it, and getting that new information was tremendous. So I think we handled that as good as we possibly could have. So I'm very proud of you guys the way it all went down. So
I do want to say, I'm in that area a lot, obviously, and I know it happens to some county staff driving down Starkey Boulevard, and the reception is not good at all, and frequently drop calls. I cannot open email in that area. At Duck Slough in 54, I can't. You can't get anything. So, and when I talked to AT&T and they did a study, they found that they were really deficient in the area, and that's who I use, AT&T. And they are elevating and rushing to add an array on the tower at Trinity Storage, the one where they cut down all the oak trees for the billboard, at Starkey and 54. But it's going to take them a year. Oh, there's the picture. That's not doctored now. That's the National Forest taking care of those woods on the left and the private landowner taking care of the woods on the right. And there's like a straight line. It's just really sad.
we didn't ask for that picture.
But I'm glad to see it. And you also got the roof there of the convention center. But, and I had hoped that would help the school, but we learned that is more than 2 miles away from the school. So it won't help the school. It'll help some of that area, but there really is a deficiency
And
in
you know
that
what?
area.
And I'm glad we're going to go look for other solutions. So
Yeah.
with all that said, I just want to commend the board. I thought you handled it very professionally. Thank you for helping me trying to figure out how to get it all through and getting it done. But we got our 2 things we need to get done as well. So I think it did very well. So with that, we're adjourned.
life depends